Chapter 21. Needless to say, Nian Bing knew that Feng Nu was the one who had caused a ruckus at Clearwind's study. Feng Nu must have fought with Xuejing because he hadn't gone to Clearwind's study and hadn't been able to find him. He was really muddle-headed, forgetting everything as soon as he started reading. Walking out of the library, Nian Bing's heart was burning with anxiety. He didn't know why, but at this moment, his mind was filled with Feng Nu's graceful figure. He didn't care about shocking the world as he raised his icicle staff and chanted, "Great Ice Goddess, lend me your anger and send us to the lost shore." Blizzard. Blue light scattered from the icicle staff, and the surrounding air suddenly became much colder. The wind blew and the snow fluttered. The fourth-order blizzard gradually became more violent. Nian Bing's body and mind were completely immersed in the ice element. His body drifted with the snow, and in the midst of the blizzard, he flew high into the sky. Using a snowstorm to fly a short distance, the distance one could fly depended entirely on the level of the magician. The higher the level of the magician, the further they could fly. With Nian Bing's current magic power as a great magician and his effective control over magic, it wasn't difficult for him to fly from the Magic Guild to the blacksmith's shop with the least amount of magic power he could muster. From afar, Nian Bing could already see the smuggled ironware shop's courtyard. A ball of red light was twisting and turning in the courtyard, like a red flood dragon. Although he was still far away, he could faintly feel the enormous aura contained within. Nian Bing controlled the blizzard to slowly descend towards the courtyard. As the distance gradually closed, Nian Bing discovered that the person practicing the sword was Feng Nu. This was the first time he saw Feng Nu practicing martial arts. His heart stirred, and he faintly felt that the strength of Feng Nu's Do Qi was actually not inferior to that of the divine weapon master Hua Tian. The Do Qi permeated the entire courtyard, and the dark red light brought with it scorching hot air. Although it was still 20 meters from the ground, Nian Bing could already feel the increasing heat. The snowflakes that helped him fly were melting under the heat, and he was about to lose control of his body. After all, the blizzard had a certain influence on the weather. Feng Nu was practicing her sword when she suddenly felt the surrounding air become colder, and the air currents also became stronger. She subconsciously looked up and saw a blue figure in the sky descending towards her. She was already in a bad mood, and seeing this situation, she immediately shouted, "Who's there?" Her feet moved slightly, and she grasped the godly sword of parting heaven with both hands. She abruptly took a step forward, and with her legs on her waist, belt on her back on her arms and arm on her wrists, a red flame Do Qi rose from below as if it was splitting the heavens and earth. In the midst of a sharp whistle, the red Do Qi was like an extension of the godly sword of parting heaven, and a red blade of light that was 1 meter wide slashed towards Nian Bing. Suddenly feeling the enormous pressure from below, Nian Bing couldn't help but jump in fright. With no time to explain, in such a dangerous situation, he subconsciously took out the morning dew dagger from his chest. No, it should be called the Sigh of the Ice Goddess now. The cloth wrapped around the hilt of the dagger turned into ice powder under the effect of the enormous ice element, and the blue light suddenly flourished. Nian Bing didn't have time to chant an incantation. He grabbed a pile of paper from his chest and threw it into the sky. Under the effect of the Sigh of the Ice Goddess, the dozen or so papers actually strangely turned into an enormous ice net that was interspersed with more than 10 ice blades. In order to prevent the Sigh of the Ice Goddess from leaking too much of the aura of the Ice Goddess stone, Nian Bing had no choice but to deliberately use his magic power to set up a small barrier around the Ice Goddess stone when he used it to draw in the magic power attached to the papers. Although this could prevent the aura of the Ice Goddess stone from leaking out, the might of the ice net was also reduced by a lot because of this. Explode! The ice blades collided with the giant flaming blade one after another. With a loud bang, the giant flaming blade formed from Do Qi suddenly weakened a bit under the continuous impact of the ice blades. However, the ice blades were after all only second-rank ice magic. How could their might compare to the sky-splitting Do-Chi slash that was released with parting heaven godly sword as the foundation? Although the radiance of the Do-Chi had weakened a bit, it still slashed towards Nianbing. The dozen or so ice blade spells gave Nianbing enough time. He didn't dare to use the Sigh of the Ice Goddess anymore. He took out the Ice Goddess stone from his chest and quickly chanted, "O mighty God of fire! Please allow me to borrow your left hand to let the flames descend upon the world, extinguishing all evil forces. Let the flames illuminate the earth, destroying all obstacles that obstruct the path ahead." Fire God's left hand. According to legend, the Fire God's left hand was the weakest part of the Fire God's body. Therefore, this fire magic that was similar to summoning fire elements was only at the 5th rank. If it was the Fire God's right hand, although there was only a difference of 1 word, the difference in level was as much as 4 levels. The 9th rank Fire God's right hand could easily destroy a large group of thousands of heavy cavalry. A huge flaming hand suddenly appeared in front of Nianbing at the same time the incantation ended. At the same time, the red Do-Chi slash had also arrived in front of Nianbing. The huge flaming hand met the Do-Chi slash head-on. Although the Fire God's left hand was the weakest part of the Fire God, it was still a part of the Fire God. Although a 5th rank single target spell wasn't the limit of a great magician, it was still close to the limit. Although the Fire God's left hand was extremely powerful, it was still deflected to the side by the Fire God's left hand. Under Nianbing's exquisite control, the Fire God's left hand opened its palm at the right time. It didn't use its magic to fight against the Do-Chi slash, but instead remained in front of Nianbing. "Feng Nu, don't do it, it's me!" Nianbing anxiously shouted. Feng Nu's Do-Chi slash with the Fire God's left hand as the foundation was too terrifying. The Fire God's left hand had only touched it from the side, but it had already weakened by 1/3. If not for the Fire God's stone, this 5th rank spell would have been destroyed long ago. Just as Long Ling had said, Feng Nu's strength had definitely reached the level of a pugilist. How old was she? A pugilist was a powerful warrior on the same level as a magic shooter. Feng Nu, who was below, was already regretting when she swung her sword. She was originally practicing her swordsmanship, and when she was in the mood to practice, she just happened to find an unidentified flying object falling towards her. She subconsciously slashed with her sword. Only after she swung her sword did she realize that she did not know if it was a friend or foe. However, she had already released her Do-Chi. Unless her martial arts had reached the level of perfection, how could she withdraw it? The change in the air made her extremely surprised. Although the Do-Chi had left the sword, it was still connected to her spirit. She could clearly feel that in just a few blinks of an eye, there were first dozens of ice blades in the air that blocked her attack, followed by a large flaming hand that dissolved her attack. It was obvious that the opponent was a magician. A magician with such fast reaction speed was definitely not simple. Even if she did not hear Nianbing's shout, she would not have continued to attack. Under the protection of the Vulcan's left hand, Nianbing slowly descended. Due to the effect of the Stone of Fire God, using this level 5 magic did not bring too much of a burden to him. He landed in front of Feng Nu with a lingering fear and said with a bitter smile, "I haven't seen you for a few days. You don't have to welcome me like this. That could have killed me." When he landed on the ground, the huge Vulcan's left hand also disappeared. With a flash of red light, the parting heaven's sword returned to its scabbard. Feng Nu flashed and was already in front of Nianbing. She looked at him carefully before she breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Who asked you to suddenly fall from the sky? Fortunately, I did not hurt you. When I was practicing my swordsmanship, I was so focused that as long as there was an external stimulus, I would immediately attack. Fortunately, I did not make a big mistake. There was a door, but you insisted on coming from above. You are really too much." Nian Bing naturally did not blame Feng Nu, seeing the concern in her eyes. He said apologetically, "I'm sorry, it's all my fault." "Feng Nu, did you go to the Clear Wind study?" Hearing Nian Bing mention the Clear Wind study, Feng Nu could not help but snort and said, "Don't mention the Clear Wind study. I went there to look for you. Originally, I was quite polite, but in the end, I met an unruly girl who said that you were dead. I got angry and fought with her. Her skills were not as good as her mouth. After that, if it was not for a middle-aged man from the Clear Wind study who came to explain to me, I would have taught her a lesson that day. Nian Bing, where have you been these few days? I couldn't find you and you didn't come to see me. Could it be that I am so annoying?" Nian Bing was tongue-tied by Feng Nu's question. He hurriedly said, No, it is indeed my fault." Then, Nian Bing briefly told Feng Nu what happened a few days ago. He did not mention much about the banquet and only briefly talked about how he joined the Magicians' Guild. "So, you are now a member of the Ice Moon Empire's Magicians' Guild, and a great magician. Magic is so attractive to you that you even forgot about me." Although Feng Nu said this, there was a smile on her face. Obviously, she did not really blame Nian Bing. Nian Bing said, "All these years, I have been practicing my culinary skills by master's side. I have always been fumbling with my magic. This time, I finally found an opportunity, so I naturally put more effort into it." Feng Nu seemed to have thought of something. "Oh, right, when you were blocking my attack, you seem to have used two types of magic. The first one was weaker, but it slowed down the speed of my Do-Chi attack. The second one was stronger, but it diverted my Do-Chi attack to the side. However, what I find strange is that your two types of magic don't seem to be of the same attribute. One is of ice, the other is of fire. When I first saw you use two types of magic at the same time, I thought that your magic power was very low. Because there was no one to guide you in practicing two types of magic, your body was not affected because your magic power was not high. But now, it seems that your two types of magic have reached a level that is not weak. Could it be that you are really an ice and fire dual-element magician? These two types of magic are polar opposites." Nian Bing was secretly shocked. Although he had a good impression of Feng Nu, but when it concerned his own secret, he would not easily reveal it. He hurriedly explained, "I do have ice and fire attributes, so I am able to practice these two types of magic at the same time. But, just like what you think, these two types of magic counter each other, making it difficult for me to achieve a higher level. In order to not be devoured, I can only control my magic power to a certain extent. But this is enough for me. Anyway, I am only a chef. Magic is only used to support my culinary skills. Feng Nu, I really did not expect that your martial arts skills have reached such a level. I think you should be at the level of a martial fighter." Feng Nu's eyes flashed. Looking at the sheathed godly sword in her hand, she nodded her head and said, "You can say so. Nian Bing, I know that you have some doubts in your heart. You want to know how I was able to achieve such power at such a young age. But I hope that you will not ask. You only need to know that I have no ill intentions towards you. When the Zhengyang saber is completed, it will also be the end of our fate. At that time, you will leave Ice Snow City. Similarly, I will also leave this smuggled ironware shop." Nian Bing looked at Feng Nu in shock. From the first time he had met Feng Nu, he had sensed a mysterious aura from Feng Nu. However, this aura was hidden very deeply, and he did not want to delve into it. At least, he believed that Feng Nu's identity as Hua Tian's disciple could not be wrong. Otherwise, she would not have been willing to help him inlay the divine fire stone. But now, it seemed that things were more complicated than he had imagined. Feng Nu definitely had a lot of secrets, especially her powerful martial arts that did not match her age. Although the number of martial artists on the mainland was not as pitiful as the number of sorcerers, there were definitely not more than 1,000 of them. Every country's martial artist was someone that the royal family would try their best to rope in. For decades, although the 5 great empires were able to coexist peacefully, the battles in the dark had never stopped. And these battles were mainly displayed on 2 levels. One was the competition between martial artists, and the other was naturally the competition between sorcerers. Although these were not officially organized, the continent's #1 martial arts competition and the continent's #1 sorcerer competition were not something that any country could belittle. As long as one achieved outstanding results in the competition, even the overall strength of the entire country would be recognized by other countries. This kind of competition that did not require a fight was obviously something that every country wanted to see. And in the records of the mainland, the youngest martial artist was above 35 years old. Feng Nu's age was about the same as Nian Bing's. If news of such a young martial artist like her were to spread out, it would set off a wave in the entire mainland. Feng Nu was a little uncomfortable under Nian Bing's burning gaze. She lowered her head and said, "I went to look for you that day to tell you that the quality of the Xingyang saber is much harder than I thought. It is definitely impossible to finish carving it in a month's time, so you will have to wait for a longer time. Conservatively speaking, it will take at least 3 months to carve the handle completely. You are at the Sorcerer's Guild, right? After I finish carving it, I will go there to look for you. Go back and learn your magic well. After all, having some ability to protect yourself is always good for you. Actually, with your physique, if you practice martial arts, you will have some achievements in a short period of time. Magic is an ability that cannot be compared to martial arts unless it is in a war. Just like just now, if I had attacked continuously, I am afraid you would not have been able to withstand it. Of course, this is only my suggestion. If you choose to practice magic because you want to be a good chef, then it is obviously the right choice." Nian Bing smiled and said, "Feng Nu, it is because you practice fighting aura that you can feel the power of fighting aura. But I am different. I practice magic, and magic has its own mysteries. If my magic power can be compared to your fighting aura, I think your fighting aura will not be able to do anything to me. What a magician needs is only the time to chant the spell. Yes, I am unable to contend against your continuous attacks, but if I am a sorcerer, when I use level 8 magic, the power of a martial artist will not be able to contend against it. Therefore, I have always thought that the main difference between a magician and a martial artist is the distance. When a magician and a martial artist of the same level are close in distance, the martial artist will inevitably win. But when the distance is far, the magician will have enough time to chant, then the martial artist will be in danger. Of course, the best combination is naturally the martial artist and the magician working together. The martial artist will be in front to contend against the enemy's close combatants, while the magician will be in the back to use suitable magic. This is not only a method of war, but also a method of battle. The only difference is the size of the combination. Just as you said, I am only a chef. Magic is enough for me. If I am distracted to learn martial arts, in the end there will only be one result, and that is nothing." After listening to Nian Bing's words, Feng Nu's dark blue eyes revealed a trace of surprise. "I didn't expect that your understanding would be so thorough. Then I won't say anything more. It seems that you are not prepared to make something delicious for me to taste today." At this point, the desire in Feng Nu's eyes was obvious. She could not forget Nian Bing's cooking skills. Nian Bing helplessly spread out her hands and said, "Indeed, when I heard that you went to the Cool Breeze restaurant to look for me, I immediately rushed over and did not prepare anything. Why don't I go buy something now?" The Phoenix Maiden smiled and said, "There's no need, I'm just joking with you. Although the food you make is really delicious, I really don't want to eat too much. Otherwise, when we're separated in the future, how can other food satisfy me? Hurry up and go back to your Magician's Guild. Don't come back for the next few days. Do what you are supposed to do. I will try to complete the carving task in 3 months. When the time comes, I will naturally look for you. With the help of your fire magic, I think that embedding will not be too difficult." Feng Nu's understanding made Nian Bing's heart feel a trace of gratitude. When talking to her, there was no need to explain too much. The two of them often only needed to look at each other to understand what the other wanted the most at the moment. Mutual understanding would bring relaxation to the other. The feeling of relaxation increased Ling Nianbing's impression of this mysterious Feng Nu. Since coming to Ice Snow City, Nianbing had met 4 beauties. Among the 4 beauties, Feng Nu was definitely the first in terms of impression and position in her heart. Although she was a little mysterious, at least she did not have anything that Nianbing was worried about. Nianbing did not even hide the fact that she had the ability to use 2 types of magic at the same time. When she was with her, everything was so natural, as if she had taken off her invisible mask. This was the feeling that only family members would have. Feng Nu did not say anything more and sent Nianbing to the entrance of the blacksmith shop. "Okay, you can go now. This is for you. If you encounter any trouble in Ice Snow City that you can't solve, you just have to blow it and I will definitely rush over in the shortest time possible." She took out a small flute from her bosom and handed it to Nianbing. The flute was about 3 inches long and was completely dark red. There were a few holes of different sizes on it. The hollow carving seemed to be in the shape of a phoenix. The style was simple and unadorned. Just from the luster on the surface, it was enough to prove its value. What's more, it was emitting a warm aura. "Blow it and see." Feng Nu smiled and said. Nianbing brought the flute to her mouth and gently blew. She could clearly feel that there was a sharp sound coming from the flute, but her ears could not feel it. Feng Nu proudly said, "This phoenix flute is extremely precious. Keep it well. This is my family's heirloom. I only have this one. I'm not giving it to you. I'm just lending it to you temporarily. When the Zhengyang saber is finished, you still have to return it to me. It's not that I'm stingy, but this is the only thing my mother left for me. I can't give it away casually." The sound of the phoenix flute being played can only be heard by our clan. Oh no, only people who have undergone special training can hear it. Speaking up to hear, Feng Nu remembered her mother's dying words. Her mother told her that only when she met someone she really liked, someone she could entrust her life to, then she could give this phoenix flute away. Thinking up to hear, her delicate face could not help but turn red. The faint fragrance coming from the flute made Ling Nianbing's heart excited. "Feng Nu, Shoo." Feng Nu put her finger on her lips. "Don't say anything. Go. We are friends. Helping each other is something we should do. Remember, we are just friends." Nianbing froze for a moment. As if cold water had been poured on his face, he suddenly woke up. Looking at Feng Nu's beautiful face, she was right. They were just friends. What's more, now was not the time to pursue feelings. Without using the blizzard again, Nianbing walked step by step back to the Magician's Guild. When he returned to the guild, lunch was already over. Along the way, he held the phoenix flute tightly. His heart was filled with Feng Nu's shadow. Perhaps it was because of love at first sight. Since coming to Ice Snow City, Nianbing's mind had always been tense. Only when he was facing Feng Nu could his tense mind relax a little. When he left Ice Snow City, he might forget Xuejing, forget Luo Ro, and even forget the gentle Long Ling. However, he knew that for a long time, it would be difficult for him to forget Feng Nu. Her long pink hair, her alluring figure wrapped in blue clothes, and her eyes that were as blue as the sky, all of them were deeply imprinted in his heart. "Feng Nu, oh Feng Nu, what kind of person are you? Clansman, you once said clansman. Could it be that you belong to a special race?" His father had once told him that at the end of the war, many races had been destroyed because of the defeat. However, some of these races had been left behind and were scattered all over the place. Because humans did not look very different from each other, it was very difficult to distinguish them. Perhaps the Phoenix Maiden was one of these lost clans. "Nianbing, you're back." A calm voice awakened Nianbing from his thoughts. He raised his head and saw Long Ji, who was wearing a green magician's robe, standing not far in front of him. Nian Bing hurriedly collected his thoughts and took a few steps forward. He respectfully said, "Hello, President." Long Zhi smiled and said, "It's a good thing that you like to cultivate, but you can't be too tired. If everyone in the guild could be as motivated as you, I wouldn't have to worry." Nian Bing said indifferently, "President, you're too kind. Since Nian Bing started cultivating, this is the first time I've seen so many magic books. To Nian Bing, they are the greatest treasures. How can one return empty-handed after entering a treasure trove? Just understanding these theories and knowledge will take some time. Nian Bing started late and naturally has to study harder so that her cultivation can proceed more smoothly in the future." Long Zhi nodded slightly and said, "When you first entered the library, I wasn't too surprised. After all, any magician will need a suitable magic incantation. What surprised me was that the magic materials on the first floor took you several days. To be able to start from the basics is enough to prove that you are a promising talent. The first 3 floors of the library have always been in a completely open state. Continue to study. If there's anything you don't understand, try to find me. As for the matter of the cool breeze study, you don't have to worry. I have a good relationship with the master of the cool breeze study. With me stepping in for you, they won't make things difficult for you. Since you're willing to cultivate, you can continue. I heard from Ling that you're already preparing to enter the 2nd floor of the library to study. I've discussed it with Ling. She has been learning magic from me since she was young. Like you, she is also an ice magician. Starting from the 2nd floor of the library, let her read the materials in the library together with you. You can also compare notes with each other. Especially in the area of magic control, you can give her more pointers. You're of the same age, so it'll be easier for you to get along. Let her comprehend on her own, it'll be better than me teaching her directly." Nian Bing frowned slightly. She was a dual-element magician, so the things she needed to read were not just ice magic materials. If Long Ling was by her side, it would naturally be more troublesome. However, Long Zhi was the president of the Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Guild. Since he had already said so, she couldn't refuse. Her heart moved and she said, "President, how about this? Let Big Brother Shurju study with us. It's inconvenient for a man and a woman to be alone. If we all study and discuss together, the gains should be greater. I've seen it in a book on the 1st level of the basics of magic that all types of magic are interlinked under certain circumstances. Even though Big Brother Shurju is practicing earth magic, if we study it together, the effect should be better." Long Zhi's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. He was very clear about how attractive his daughter was. He arranged for Long Ling and Nian Bing to study together in the library. Naturally, he wanted to create some opportunities for Nian Bing, but he didn't expect that he would take the initiative to give up this opportunity. Could it be that with his daughter's talent and appearance, he wasn't the least bit attractive to him? Although he thought so in his heart, he said, "You're very thoughtful. Let's do it this way. As for other things, you don't have to worry. If you need anything, just tell the servants. I'll send food to the library every day. I hope that you can have some breakthroughs in this period of time. Nian Bing, you have to remember that magic power is the key to cultivating magic. It's also the fundamental foundation for casting higher-level magic. Don't be confused by too many spells and technique." Long Zhi's simple words made Ling Nian Bing feel like she was suddenly enlightened. Yes, magic power was the real key to cultivating magic. Her ice and fire magic was different from other magic. How to truly fuse these 2 extremes of magic power together was her biggest problem. And for this problem, she could only look for it in the library. "Thank you for your guidance, President. I'll definitely work hard in my cultivation." After bowing to Long Zhi, Nian Bing turned and walked towards the library. Looking at Nian Bing's back, Long Zhi couldn't help but smile. When he was his age, his magic cultivation was much weaker than his. He didn't know how much more surprises he could bring him. After Shi Jiao and Long Ling came back that day, they reported to him about Nian Bing's situation. After confirming that Nian Bing had once chopped firewood at the Breeze sect, Long Ji's trust in him increased by a lot. At least, this proved that Nian Bing had nothing to do with the person the ice goddess priests were looking for. In Long Ji's eyes, Nian Bing was a genius mage who was eager to learn and improve. For such a talent, he would naturally choose to rope her in. Once again coming to the library, Nian Bing directly went to the second floor. The second floor recorded all kinds of knowledge of magic from the 3rd to the 6th level, as well as more profound explanations of magic. Memorizing ice magic incantations was what he needed the most, so the first book he chose was the Encyclopedia of Intermediate Ice Magic Incantations. Halfway through a book, Shi Jiao and Long Ling had already climbed up the stairs. Once Shi Jiao came up, he took the initiative to greet Nian Bing. "Brother, we're here." Nian Bing put down the book in her hand, smiled at the two, and said, "Brother Shi Jiao, Ling you guys can start reading the magic books too." Shi Jiao said helplessly, "I really don't know what Master is thinking, forcing us to read the books too. We've already memorized the basics of these intermediate spells." "Nian Bing, do you have anything to recommend?" Nian Bing shrugged and said, "I've only just reached the 2nd floor. See, I'm still reading the incantations. Since the president asked you guys to come, you guys can take a look. It'll be helpful." Long Ling's gentle gaze fell on Nian Bing and said, "Have you gone to see Silence?" Nian Bing shook her head and said, "I don't want to see her. You know, with her temper, if she sees me, she'll just mock and ridicule me. It's better not to see her." Chapter 22. Long Ling sighed softly and said, "Silence may have a bad temper, but she's still a very nice person. You don't have to be prejudiced against her." Nian Bing interrupted Long Ling and said, "The president asked me to compare notes on the training methods of magic control with you. I want to know, how do you usually train your magic control?" Long Ling was stunned for a moment and said, "Naturally by casting some low-level magic, and then using my spiritual energy to control it to the extent that I want it to be." "Don't tell me you don't do that?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "Of course not. Actually, there's no trick to the training of magic control. The main thing is to train your spiritual energy, and if you only train your spiritual energy by controlling magic, the results won't be very good, and it won't stimulate your spiritual energy much. For example, when you control the strongest magic you can cast, it will be very difficult to get it to the extent that you want it to be, and you can only use it as an attack. Logically speaking, since you can cast this magic, you should be able to control it. The reason why you can't control it isn't because your spiritual energy is insufficient, but because your spiritual energy isn't focused enough." "Focused?" Long Ling's eyes lit up. She was very talented in magic training, and after listening to Nian Bing's simple pointers, she immediately understood many things. She asked, "But how can I fully focus my spiritual energy? There has to be a way." Of course, Nian Bing couldn't tell her that he had learned how to concentrate his spiritual power by chopping firewood. He said helplessly, "This varies from person to person. To put it simply, when you focus your attention on something, your spiritual power will also be concentrated. You have to go through all kinds of trials to find the most suitable training method for yourself." Long Ling thought for a moment and said, "I understand." She took out a small magic staff from her bosom and didn't say anything else. She walked to a corner and sat down, focusing on the gem on the staff. Nian Bing praised in her heart. Although this kind of direct observation was inferior to her own cultivation method, it was undoubtedly the most suitable for Long Ling. However, the cultivation of spiritual power was not something that could be completed overnight. She had also used 8 years to achieve her current achievements. Shi Jiao watched as Long Ling sat down at the side and focused on the gemstones. He couldn't help but stare blankly for a moment. He didn't listen to what Nian Bing had said earlier. Now that he saw Long Ling really try according to what Nian Bing said, he couldn't help but find it funny. He sat down beside Nian Bing and whispered, "I heard Master say that he originally only wanted Ling to come to the library to cultivate with you alone. Was it you who took the initiative to call me?" Nian Bing smiled slightly and whispered, "So that Big Brother wouldn't misunderstand. I reckon that I'll be in the library for a long time. You can go and chase after your Ling and I'll read my books. This is equivalent to giving you a chance to be alone with each other. How about it? We're brothers enough." Nianbing gave him a thumbs up. The excitement in his eyes couldn't be concealed. "Good brother. If you need anything, just tell Big Brother. I'll definitely help you." Nianbing smiled and said, "Not yet. Big Brother, I'm going to read. I won't be able to see anything else." After saying that, he took the book and stood up. He walked to another bookshelf and continued his learning process. Jiu understood and stood up as well. He sat down beside Long Ling and looked at the gem on the staff with her. In the sea of books, time always passed very quickly. In the first few days, Jiu could still endure the loneliness and accompany Long Ling. However, his natural disposition was lazy and he wasn't very interested in magic cultivation. Otherwise, he wouldn't still be stuck in the realm of an advanced magician at the age of 30. A few days passed. Other than when they were eating, Long Ling and Nian Bing would speak a few words. The two were always in silence. This situation made Jiu very uncomfortable. On the third day, he really couldn't stand it anymore. Other than occasionally coming in to take a look, he didn't stay here for long. In any case, Nian Bing and Long Ling were like blocks of wood. Jiu now trusted Nian Bing very much. On the 7th day, he simply didn't come anymore and let the two cultivate in the library. Nian Bing held a book in one hand and quickly condensed magic with the other hand. She continuously engraved magic on a scroll. This kind of magic scroll was made from special materials. There was a layer of stone powder formed from crushed magic gems. Through the engraving of magic, magic could be stored on the scroll. Once it was needed, it could be used instantly, minus the chanting process. That day, when Nian Bing was resisting Feng Nu's attack, she threw out more than 10 pieces of paper. These were the beginner magic scrolls he learned to draw on the first floor. Level 2 magic could be drawn on ordinary paper. Magic above level 4, however, required these specialized scrolls. These white scrolls had different prices according to their quality. The cheapest one was 1 gold coin, while the most expensive one was 10 purple coins. The white scrolls themselves weren't very valuable, but if the required magic was drawn on them, then the price would immediately increase by several times. The scrolls Nian Bing was using now were the most common white scrolls that cost 1 gold coin. Although the Magicians Guild gave members many preferential policies, the white scrolls needed to be bought by the members themselves. Nian Bing was originally just a little curious about the use of the scrolls. But at Feng Nu's place, he relied on the scrolls to save him. This made his curiosity about the scrolls soar. After memorizing the required incantations and looking at the knowledge he needed, he started to learn how to engrave and use the scrolls on the 2nd floor. He bought the white scrolls directly from the Magicians Guild. Because he was a member of the Magicians Guild, he could get a 20% discount. In just 2 days, Nian Bing had already used more than 90 of the 100 low-level white scrolls that he bought at one time. His half a month's salary disappeared just like that. However, his luck was also not bad. Because of his high magic control, his success rate when drawing the scrolls was much higher than the average magician. Among the 90 scrolls, there were more than 30 level 4 scrolls. There were even 6 level 5 scrolls and 2 level 6 scrolls. This was already Nian Bing's current limit. Last stroke. Ice magic suddenly condensed. Nian Bing pointed at the most crucial part of the scroll. With a whoosh, the scroll flashed with blue light and suddenly turned into a pile of ice powder. It was scrap. Nian Bing was a little tired from overdrawing his mental strength. He helplessly leaned on the bookshelf. The success rate of this level 6 magic scroll is really low. I wasted another gold coin. It's already very good. A sweet voice came from behind. Nian Bing turned around to look. He didn't know when, but Long Ling had already come to his side. Squatting down, Long Ling looked at the completed scrolls on the ground. She couldn't help but smile. If every magician had your high success rate, then our Magicians Guild would have become the richest organization in the continent. Nian Bing was surprised. The book only says that the success rate of drawing a magic scroll is related to the magician's magic power, magic control, understanding of magic, and the quality of the scroll. It doesn't say what the success rate is. Ling is my success rate really that high? Long Ling smiled. Of course it's very high. Generally speaking, magicians can only draw scrolls that are 2 levels lower than the highest level of magic they can use. The success rate is generally around 1 to 5%. A good white scroll can't increase the magic power of the scroll. It can only increase the success rate when drawing the scroll. Using the most expensive scrolls, the success rate is only 20%. In addition, those scrolls are small and easy to carry. That's why the price is so high. So, a successful magic scroll, even if it's only at the 4th level, its value is very high. Like your 4th level blizzard, it's worth at least 50 to 100 gold coins. You used a total of 100 scrolls and produced more than 34th level ice magic scrolls. In other words, you can get at least 10 times the profit of the original scrolls. Tell me, don't you think you've struck it rich? Not to mention, you even used this most common of white scrolls to create several Tier 5 and Tier 6 magic scrolls. Tier 6 magic scrolls should be the highest rank you can reach. To be able to create such a scroll, even my father wouldn't be able to do it. For every higher level of magic, the price of a scroll is calculated by 5 times. In other words, these 5th level scrolls of yours can be sold for several tens of purple gold coins. As for the 6th level scrolls, they can be sold for a high price of 200 purple gold coins. Hearing Long Ling's words, Nian Bing couldn't help but smile and said, "Then, don't you think I've struck it rich?" Ling, how did you know I made 5th and 6th level scrolls? Long Ling's charming face reddened and said, "I've been paying attention to you since you started making scrolls. Making scrolls is relatively dangerous. I don't want you to destroy the library. I really didn't expect that your magic control is so much stronger than I imagined. I'm afraid that ordinary magic shooters are not as good as you. Otherwise, how could it be so easy to make a scroll?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "I have no use for so many scrolls. If you like, I'll give you a few. You can choose as you wish. Unfortunately, my magic power is not enough. Otherwise, I'd really make high-level scrolls to use. With scrolls, when I meet an enemy, I'll throw them. Even if it's a high-level warrior, I'm afraid they won't be very comfortable." Long Ling laughed and said, "Are you okay? You have to know that throwing scrolls is equivalent to throwing money. Speaking of scrolls, I remember. Last time, Uncle Li Hua was caught by your blizzard because of a moment of carelessness. In order to not lose face, he used a 7th level magic scroll. It was with my father's help that he was able to draw it in front of him. If it was sold outside, it could be sold for at least 3,000 purple gold coins. After you left, you don't know how distressed he was. The cost of that scroll alone cost him more than 200 purple gold coins." Nian Bing stared blankly at Long Ling and said, "Are magic scrolls really that valuable?" Long Ling looked at Nian Bing as if she was looking at a monster. "Now I truly believe that you have never formally studied magic before. Not only are magic scrolls valuable, but they have always been priceless. Magic scrolls above the 6th level are worth 10 times more. You have to know that a 7th level magic scroll can easily destroy a defenseless city gate. A 8th level magic scroll can instantly destroy 1,000 soldiers. When it comes to the 9th level, the magic power released by a scroll can almost destroy an entire army of 10,000. Think about it, How much money does it cost to build an army of 10,000? Depending on the magic, an 8th level magic scroll is worth at least 10,000 purple gold coins and above. An 8th level magic scroll with a large area of effect attack costs 50,000 purple gold coins. As for 9th level magic scrolls, they basically have no price. Moreover, they haven't appeared in a long time. My father can cast a 10th level magic spell after chanting for a long time. He once tried to make a 9th level magic scroll, but he never succeeded. In this regard, he has already spent several thousand purple gold coins to buy a blank scroll. Hearing Long Ling's words, Nian Bing suddenly understood why magic scrolls were so valuable. The main reason was that any magic scroll, even if it was only in the hands of a beginner mage, could display the magic power of the scroll. In this way, as long as there was money, a beginner mage could even contend with a high mage if he had dozens of magic scrolls on him. This was the advantage of magic scrolls. However, according to Long Ling's words, the magic scrolls she made could be sold for a lot of money. When she needed money in the future, she could just make some. It's a pity that my magic power is still low. The highest I can make is the 6th level. I also can't use so many magic scrolls. Ling, can you see if the president can help me sell some? Long Ling smiled and said, sell? Father wouldn't be willing to sell so many magic scrolls when he saw them. He will definitely keep them for himself. You know, as a magician's guild, the magic scrolls stored a lot. In a battle between magicians, or in a war, the guild's fighting strength can be greatly increased. Even if it's only a 4th level magic scroll, there are still benefits to having a large collection. Now, there are very few people in the guild who make magic scrolls like you. After all, the success rate of making magic scrolls is too low. In order to increase the success rate, everyone generally uses better blank scrolls, which costs a lot. How about this? I promise you on behalf of my father. As long as you need it, the guild will provide you with all the resources free of charge. But the magic scrolls you make, you have to sell them to the guild at half the market price. You can keep as many as you want. I estimate that with your current magic control, if you use the best blank scrolls to make a 4th level magic scroll, the success rate can reach more than 80%. I suggest that you make more high-level magic scrolls. That way you can train even more. If you make magic scrolls for a long time, it will have a great effect on your magic control. But for someone like me, whose success rate is almost 0, I can't afford to use this expensive method. Nian Bing roughly understood the preciousness of magic scrolls. He smiled and said, I accept your proposal. In any case, the resources I use are all provided by the guild. If I don't have the materials in the library, I can't make magic scrolls. How about this? All the magic scrolls I make, except for the ones I need, will be contributed to the guild. I don't want a single cent. However, I hope that the guild can give me the authority. If I need money, I hope that the guild can provide a limited amount. Is this okay? Long Ling froze for a moment. I didn't hear wrong? You don't want money? Nian Bing smiled and said, What use do I have for so much money? It's too troublesome to carry it with me. Besides, my expenses aren't that big. Long Ling cheered. She suddenly hugged Nian Bing and kissed him on the cheek. That's great, that's really great. Nian Bing, did you know that because of the existence of the Ice God Tower, our Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Guild has never had the slightest status on the continent? Not only are there few magic experts in the guild, our reserves are also much smaller than the other Empire's guild. In the eyes of the Ice Moon Empire's royal family, only the Ice God Tower is the symbol of the Empire's magic. We are nothing at all. Therefore, the funds allocated to us are pitifully small. Dad has always been worried about this. I really don't know what kind of monster you are. You should know that even if Dad makes these low-level magic scrolls, his success rate is far lower than yours. At least half of the guild's expenses are maintained by Dad's magic scrolls. Nian Bing touched the place where Long Ling had kissed him and said in surprise, No way, An empire's magicians' guild actually needs to be maintained like this? Long Ling said sadly, that's the truth. Our guild is different from the other empires' guilds. Other empires' guilds have the support of the entire empire behind them. We used to have that support as well, but as the Ice God Tower's influence grew, the guild was less and less recognized by the empire's royal family. The funds allocated to us are pitifully small. Even now, it's just a token. Nian Bing. With you making magic scrolls in the future, the entire guild will improve. That's really great, thank you so much. Dad will finally not have to work so hard anymore. Did you know? Dad is just in his 50s, but Uncle Snow, Silence's father, is already in his 60s. In terms of cultivation, Dad is obviously much stronger than Uncle Snow, but because of the long years of hard work, he looks even older than Uncle Snow. Nian Bing, thank you, you are the guild's hope. You can continue reading. I'm going to tell Dad this good news. Can I take a few of your scrolls with me? Nian Bing smiled and replied, of course you can. Please go ahead. He had known Long Ling for quite some time now, but this was the first time he had seen Long Ling so excited. Of course, this wasn't just for the guild, but more importantly, for her father. Long Ling happily picked up a few scrolls from the ground and ran out without even looking at what level they were. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared down the stairs. Nian Bing looked at her back as she left. Feeling the warmth on his face, he muttered to himself, what a cute girl. So scrolls are such a good thing. And I'll leave the normal ones for the guild, and use the higher level ones for myself. The more scrolls I collect, the easier it will be to travel the continent in the future. He didn't continue making magic scrolls. 10 days had passed, and he had basically finished reading all the knowledge he needed for the second level. There was only one book he was interested in left. As long as he finished this book, he would be able to enter the third level and learn more about magic. He picked up the book he had found a long time ago from the pile of scrolls and slowly flipped it open. The name of the book was The Basics of Magic Formations. A magic array was a method of connecting with the magical elements in the world through special symbols and magical waves, and using them in a reasonable manner. Under certain circumstances, magic formations were something that every magician had to understand. This was especially true for high-level magicians. This was because, only by using magic formations properly, a magician could fully display their abilities and use the least amount of energy to release the most powerful magic. After reading this section, Nian Bing's interest was immediately piqued. The reason why he chose this book was because of the creation of magic scrolls. Because the drawing method of those magic scrolls was actually based on magic formations. Since this was the case, if he could understand more about magic formations, he might be able to create his own special magic scrolls. That way, the power would be limitless. Magic formations were very profound knowledge. Even with Nian Bing's intelligence, when he saw those complicated symbols one after another, as well as the connections and various functions of these symbols, he couldn't help but feel a little lost. There were not many magic symbols, only 100 or so. Each of them had its own function. However, when a magic symbol was combined with another magic symbol to form a new one, there would be a huge change in their function. These changes were what gave Nian Bing a headache. More than 100 symbols, when they were combined, then the new symbols would definitely increase exponentially. Under such circumstances, how could he remember all of them? The thick book had more than 1,000 pages. Nian Bing was attracted by the magic formation and was quickly immersed in it. At this moment, he had even forgotten that he was still a chef. The mystery of magic had deeply intoxicated him. Magic was indeed a mysterious thing. The connotation it had was far more than what the outside world knew. Nian Bing, can you stop for a moment? A gentle voice awakened Nian Bing from his state of studying magic formations. He looked up and didn't know when, but the Union President Long Ji and Long Ling had appeared beside him. He quickly stood up and said somewhat awkwardly, "I'm sorry, President. I was too engrossed." Long Zhi smiled and said, "It's okay. This is very good. I've already heard about you from Ling. Now, can you make a magic scroll for me to see? I really don't understand. Although your magic power is not weak, compared to mine, there is still a big gap. Why is your success rate so high when making magic scrolls?" Nian Bing helplessly shrugged and said, "I don't really understand this question." "Then I'll make one. You are the authority in the magic world. Perhaps you can find the key to the problem. Unfortunately, I've already used up all my white scrolls." "It's okay. I have some here." As he said that, Long Zhi took out a small scroll and handed it to Nian Bing. He smiled and said, "This is the most expensive white scroll. It costs 10 purple coins. It can increase your success rate when making magic scrolls. Give it a try." Nian Bing immediately felt something different when he held the 3-inch long scroll in his hand. Dense magical elements spread across the scroll as he opened it carefully. There was a layer of sparkling luster on the surface of the white paper. This was something that his white scrolls, which cost only 1 gold coin, could not compare to. Nian Bing didn't hesitate. His dedication to magic made him immediately move. With a wave of his right hand, the surrounding air suddenly became cold. He didn't immediately inscribe the magic array on the scroll. Just like when he was chopping firewood, he carefully observed the 10 purple coins scroll in front of him. His eyes flashed continuously, searching for a gap in the energy fluctuation. Finally, after a few breaths of observation, Nian Bing's right hand moved. His wrist seemed to be broken as it rapidly transformed on the scroll. Streams of magic condensed from ice elements continuously inscribed on the small scroll. The speed was so fast that it was almost impossible to see clearly. A 5th-step ice wall spell was completed in a few blinks of an eye. When Nian Bing's finger finally touched the scroll, a circle of blue light scattered in all directions. When the light reached its largest halo, it suddenly disappeared. A 5th-step scroll was completed just like that. Long Zhi sucked in a breath of cold air. "Heavens! Are you drawing a scroll?" Nian Bing woke up from his immersion. Raising his head, he looked at Long Zhi and said with a smile, "Guild leader, this kind of white scroll is really good. The one I used before, I'm afraid only 1 out of 10 would succeed. Look, this ice wall spell scroll is not bad." Long Zhi smiled bitterly. "Nian Bing, fortunately I'm not so old that my eyesight is blurred. No wonder you have such a high success rate. Did you know? I need at least 2 hours to draw a scroll, but you only used a few breaths of time. This is the difference. I think you haven't been in contact with magic scrolls for a long time, so why are you so fast when drawing? Don't tell me you're not afraid of making a mistake? You have to know that the magic array on a magic scroll has very strict requirements. Even if there's only one mistake, the whole scroll will be ruined. When Ling told me you've already drawn 100 scrolls, I didn't dare to believe it. Now it seems that you really are a magic genius." Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "I told Ling that when practicing magic, if you want to make your magic control more accurate and powerful, then the best way is to concentrate. Before I draw a scroll, I first go through the magic array's shape in my mind. Through observing the white scroll, I find the best place to start and directly merge with the magic aura of the white scroll. This way, I can naturally succeed in one go. When your mental power is completely concentrated, there's no way to make a mistake with the scroll. Even if I used those white scrolls before, it was only because my magic power wasn't connected at the crucial moment." Of course, he couldn't tell Long Zhi that because of his many years of practice, his right hand's accuracy was very high, so he could draw with such confidence. Even if Long Zhi wanted to draw a good scroll, he probably wouldn't waste 8 years cutting vegetables or chopping firewood. Long Zhi looked up at the sky and sighed, "Genius, genius. Nian Bing, the best thing I did in my life was to marry Ling Er's mother. The second thing I did, I'm afraid, is to accept you into the union. I announce that from now on, you are officially an elder of the union. You will enjoy all the same rights as the other elders. As long as you need, you can use your special badge to withdraw all the funds that the branch has from any branch of the union. Nian Bing had already guessed that Long Ji would say this. After all, magic scrolls were too important for a union, especially for a union like the Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Union. They needed people like her the most, so it would be strange if he didn't try to rope her in. Since that's the case, Nian Bing will be impolite to refuse. President, I also want to make one thing clear. From now on, all the scrolls that I make, except for the ones that I need, will belong to the Union. I only hope that the Union can provide me with some high-quality white scrolls. This way, my success rate will be higher. Unfortunately, my magic power is still weak. If I can make some 7th or 8th rank scrolls, it will be more beneficial to the Union. Long Ji smiled slightly and said, "There's plenty of time. The cultivation of magic power can't be rushed. You also don't need to be in a hurry to make scrolls. Learn what you need first. Don't worry, as long as you need it, the Union will provide you with the highest quality white scrolls. Of course, I also hope that you can make some 5th or 6th rank scrolls." Nian Bing thought to herself. With the specialty of making magic scrolls, she could be considered to have a firm foothold in the Union. It was a pity that the strength of the Magicians' Union was too far away from the Ice God Tower. Otherwise, she only needed to instigate a little more, and maybe she could cause a struggle between the Union and the Ice God Tower. Even if it was only in the dark, it would be very beneficial for her future operations. Long Ji was in a good mood. He originally wanted to invite Nian Bing to have a meal together at the Breeze House, but Nian Bing declined with the excuse that she needed to continue learning magic arrays. Indeed, for Nian Bing, there was nothing more important than learning magic arrays. This was because, in the detailed explanation of magic arrays, she saw something that was extremely beneficial to her cultivation of the same origin of ice and fire. Time passed day by day, and the book on magic arrays had reached 1,000 pages. It took Nian Bing 7 days to finish reading it. She didn't just read it, but spent more time on understanding it. She didn't study the changes that occurred after the symbols were fused. Instead, she completely understood the special characteristics of each of the more than 100 symbols. This was because she suddenly realized that although the fused symbols were alive, the more than 100 basic symbols were dead. The characteristics of the fused symbols were the changes that occurred under the influence of these basic symbols. Therefore, as long as she could completely understand these basic symbols and understand some of the changes, it would be equivalent to understanding all the basic knowledge of magic arrays. Chapter 23. When Nian Bing closed the book, he once again recalled what Cha Ji had said. 10 years to practice cooking, 10 years to understand cooking. Yes, this sentence could also be applied to any field. The word understand had enlightened him in the study of magic arrays. Perhaps, an ordinary person's 10 years of research would not be as good as his enlightenment. Long Ling continued to accompany Nian Bing by his side, continuing to cultivate her spiritual power according to the method Nian Bing had taught her. However, the cultivation now was not as focused as it was at the beginning. Long Ji had given her a very important task, which was to take care of Nian Bing's daily life and satisfy all his needs. Therefore, every once in a while, she would look at Nian Bing. "Are you done reading?" Long Ling raised her head and looked at Nian Bing, who had stood up. Nian Bing smiled and nodded, saying, "I think we can go to the 3rd level now. Although I am still unable to apply the knowledge there, I hope to learn something special from it. If I can apply it to magic scrolls, then the scrolls I make will have some special characteristics that other scrolls don't have." Long Ling heard something from Nian Bing's words. "You mean, you can improve magic scrolls? But the method of making magic scrolls has been passed down for thousands of years, and no one has been able to change it." Nian Bing chuckled and said, "That's because our predecessors lacked the will to innovate. I think I should be able to do it. Even though I've just started, I'm sure I'll succeed as long as I'm given some time to research." Through his understanding of magic arrays, he had already understood many things. Application and understanding were two completely different things. Now, even if he did not look at the method of making magic scrolls, he could imagine the accurate drawing and making principles of higher-level magic scrolls. This was all thanks to the word understand. Seeing that Long Ling seemed to have some doubts about him, Nian Bing bent down and picked up a piece of paper from the ground. Yes, a piece of paper with magic symbols drawn on it. He handed the paper to Long Ling and said, "What can you tell from this?" Long Ling took the paper and saw some simple symbols drawn on it. She frowned and said, "This seems to be a scroll drawing method. However, from the looks of it, this should be a second-tier scroll. What's the point?" Nian Bing smiled faintly. "You're right. This is a scroll, a basic magic scroll. However, there's one thing you're wrong about. This isn't a Tier 2 magic scroll, but a Tier 1 one. Don't be surprised. As a Tier 1 magic scroll, it appeared to be somewhat complicated. However, there was a reason for its complexity. Watch." With that, he took the scroll from Long Ling's hand and waved it. Under the stimulation of the light blue ice magic, the white paper disappeared in an instant, and an icicle appeared in the air and suddenly shot towards Long Ling. This kind of Tier 1 magic attack naturally wouldn't cause any harm to Long Ling. Long Ling raised her hand and also sent out an icicle to meet the attack. According to common sense, the two icicles should collide and turn into a ball of ice powder. However, how could the things that Nian Bing did be judged by common sense? The two icicles suddenly collided and ice powder was indeed produced. However, just when Long Ling thought that it was over, an ice blade suddenly shot out from the ball of ice powder. In the blink of an eye, it was already in front of her. Long Ling cried out in alarm. At this time, she already didn't have time to use magic. She could only lower her head and try to dodge. Nian Bing smiled and waved his hand. The ice blade drew an arc and fell into his hand. "How is it? Do you understand?" Long Ling looked at Nian Bing and gradually woke up from her shock. This is... Nian Bing smiled and said, "This is the result of my research." "That's right. On the surface, it looks like a Tier 1 scroll. However, this scroll contains two spells, Icicle and Ice Blade. One is a Tier 1 spell, while the other is a Tier 2 spell. If you're bewitched by the Tier 1 Icicle, you'll definitely be injured by the Tier 2 spell that follows. I'm only using this to prove a theory to you. Although the things left behind by our predecessors are precious, if we don't have better innovations, we can only remain at the level of our predecessors. What I'm going to tell you is that I've researched a method to create multiple spells in one scroll. Although it's not mature yet, imagine if I can combine a Tier 5 and a Tier 6 magic into a single scroll. Then, in a confrontation with a mage, the power it can display can even destroy a magic shooter. Long Ling stared at Nian Bing with wide eyes. She really couldn't understand what this young man's brain was made of. In more than 1,000 years, this was the first time someone had so boldly proposed such an idea. This was the first time this kind of research had appeared. Although Nian Bing was only a great mage, his achievements were definitely not inferior to that of a grand mage. As long as his research was successful, then the Ice Moon Empire's Magic Guild's position on the continent would definitely improve greatly. "Nian Bing, how did you do it? You actually succeeded." Long Ling looked at Nian Bing with a different gaze. After all, no matter what kind of woman she was, she would always be attracted by a man with achievements. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "Actually, this is nothing. Let's go, we should go to the 3rd floor. After I've perfected this research, I'll teach you some methods of making fusion scrolls. Unfortunately, this kind of scroll is very difficult to make. It's even more difficult than ordinary scrolls. Even for me, I've only succeeded in making the one you saw just now. The higher the level, the greater the amount of spiritual force and magic power needed to support it. However, I still feel that there should be some mysteries behind it. Right now, I'm just forcing 2 magic scrolls into a single scroll. If I can combine them organically, then the effect will definitely be completely different. You can put away the scrolls on the ground and give them to your father. These days, I've only made 10 Tier 5 scrolls and 4 Tier 6 scrolls. On the 3rd floor, I think I still need to do some more research on magic arrays. Only when I have a better method, then I'll continue to make fusion scrolls. As he said this, he walked towards the 3rd floor of the library. Nian Bing naturally wouldn't say all the thoughts in his heart. In fact, he could already make fusion scrolls of higher level. He used blank paper to try out all kinds of fusion scrolls. Although the power of the magic was different, the principle was the same. As long as he could succeed in low-level magic, then high-level magic would definitely succeed. Nian Bing's figure disappeared at the corner of the stairs. Long Ling sat down on the ground in disappointment. Looking at the bookshelves in front of her, she muttered to herself, "Why? Why can he see living things from these dead books, and why can't I? What magic genius, in front of him, I'm just a child." She faintly felt that in the near future, Nian Bing would inevitably cause a great shock in the magic world. At that time, he would be an immortal existence in the magic world, and she would be the first person to witness the emergence of this existence. Nian Bing's research was extremely difficult. Since he entered the library again, he hadn't left for nearly a month. When he was tired, he would use meditation to rest. Once his spirit recovered, he would immediately continue his research and study. The amount of magic knowledge collected on the 3rd floor was much more than he imagined. Nian Bing first memorized all the incantations in his mind, then he began to study magic arrays. The production of magic scrolls was secondary. After all, magic scrolls were external objects. No matter how many magic scrolls he made, there would be a day when they would be used up. It was far from being comparable to his own strength. Magic scrolls, in fact, were only used by those weak people. The real strong people didn't care about them. The reason why he was so diligent in his research was because magic arrays might be the key to unlocking the mystery of the same origin of ice and fire. The mystery of the same origin of ice and fire was Nian Bing's greatest interest. The research continued. Nian Bing didn't know that in order to support his research, Long Zhi had ordered the entire library to be sealed. Other than Ling who could bring him food and take care of his daily life, no one else was allowed to enter. This order was issued after Long Zhi learned that Nian Bing had researched magic fusion. At the same time, he also made up his mind to keep Nian Bing in the Magic Union at all costs. It wasn't to keep him in the Magic Union, but to keep his heart. Only by keeping his heart would the Magic Union of the Ice Moon Empire become stronger. The 3rd floor of the library was obviously different from the 1st and 2nd floors. The 1st and 2nd floors had dozens of large bookshelves, but the 3rd floor only had 4. Each bookshelf had no more than 100 books, and most of the books were already very old. Magic incantations of various elements, from the 6th grade large-scale magic to the 9th grade single-target magic, were available. Although he couldn't use them now, he still carefully memorized them. Nian Bing. Long Ling's voice sounded, waking Nian Bing up from his research. Even he didn't know how many days it had been on the 3rd floor of the library. Ling what's the matter? You seem to have come less these days. Nian Bing put down the book in his hand and said with a smile. Long Ling smiled and said, "It's not that I've come less often. It's just that you've been too focused and haven't paid attention to me." Nian Bing smiled a bit awkwardly, perhaps. Ever since I entered the library, I've indeed paid less attention to other matters. Ling, are you looking for me for something? He knew that if it wasn't something special, Long Ling wouldn't have interrupted him. Long Ling smiled and said, "Of course there's something. Someone came to the Magic Union to look for you. Do you want to see him?" Nian Bing was stunned. "Looking for me? Who is it? Could it be Xuejing or Feng Nu? It couldn't be that guy Yin Feng, right?" Long Ling saw Nian Bing's strange expression and said with a smile, Don't worry, it's not Yen Feng. Although he came later, he was sent away by father with the reason that you were in closed-door meditation. After that, he didn't come again. So it turns out that a man being beautiful is also a kind of trouble, hee. Nian Bing said unhappily, don't use the word beautiful to describe me. Of course, if you want to use handsome, elegant, and so on, I won't object. Long Ling and Nianbing stuck out their tongues. You wish. It's Ro who came to look for you. I don't know what she wants. Luo Ro? It was only then that Nian Bing remembered the intelligent beauty. He seemed to have made a bet with her. It seemed like he had been in the library for a month. Since it's the beautiful and intelligent girl who came to visit, how could I not see her? Nian Bing didn't think that he had left any clues. The intelligent girl shouldn't have discovered his true identity. Long Ling glared at Nian Bing, her eyes seemed to have some hidden bitterness. Ro is already engaged. You don't have a chance. Nian Bing laughed and said, quickly invite her in. Don't worry, how could a small person like me have any improper thoughts? Are you really a small person? A trace of doubt arose in the dragon spirit's heart, but it didn't say anything. Turned around and left. After a while, when the sound of footsteps sounded again, Luo Ro, who was wearing a plain white dress, had already followed the dragon spirit over. Her white clothes set off her long blue hair, as well as her eyes filled with wisdom. Looking at her, it made people feel a trace of purity from the bottom of their hearts. Compared to the other day's dress, the current Luo Ro had a different kind of elegant beauty. When Luo Ro saw Nianbing, she couldn't help but be stunned. She turned to Long Ling and asked, Ling is he Nianbing? Long Ling smiled and said, isn't that him? We haven't seen each other for a month, and you don't recognize him? Nianbing subconsciously looked at himself, and realized that his magic robe was already full of wrinkles. He also smelled bad. He touched his face and realized that his beard had grown a lot. It was no wonder that Luo Ro couldn't recognize him. Once he started learning magic, he really forgot everything. He said awkwardly, I'm sorry, Miss Luo Ro. I've made a fool of myself. Do I look very dispirited like this? Luo Ro covered her mouth and laughed, a little haggard. It seems that you've been working very hard recently. Long Ling said, it's not that he's working very hard, it's that he's working too hard. I don't understand why he's working so hard. If this continues, I'm afraid his body will collapse. But he doesn't listen to anyone. It's as if those magic books are his wife. Nian Bing smiled bitterly and said, don't be so sarcastic. I'll go clean up now. Is that not enough? Luo Ro smiled and said, it doesn't matter if you clean up. You should still remember our agreement. Nian Bing frowned and said, you really found something? Luo Ro said proudly, of course. Even if I didn't find anything, wise girl is someone who keeps her promise. Let's talk alone. Ling I'm sorry, but I have to talk to him alone. If it was Xuejing, she might really ask about it. However, Long Ling was different. Her gentle nature made her nod and said, then let's not talk here. Nian Bing, let's go to your dorm. You really should clean yourself up. Oh, that's right. Father originally wanted to change your room to the elders, but you've been here all this time, so I didn't change it. Let's talk about it after you finish your research in the library. Nian Bing smiled and said, it doesn't matter. These are all external matters. Miss Luo Ro, this way please. Nian Bing brought Luo Ro out of the library for the first time in a month. Long Ling didn't follow. She only said a few words and left. Although she hadn't been back to the dorm for a while, it was still so refreshing. Nian Bing subconsciously looked at the magic imprint she left behind. The things she hid were untouched. She invited Luo Ro into the room and said, take a seat first. I'll go clean up. What did it feel like to not bathe for a month? Nian Bing finally experienced it. This cleaning process took a full 2 hours. When his whole body was refreshed, he secretly swore that he would never embarrass himself like this again. No one would be happy to be embarrassed in front of beauties. Nian Bing skillfully shaved off the beard on his face with the morning dew dagger. He changed into his original coarse cloth clothes and walked out of the bathroom. After waiting for 2 hours, Luo Ro did not show any signs of impatience. When she saw Nian Bing, she could not help but reveal a sliver of surprise in her eyes. Although Nian Bing was wearing ordinary clothes made of coarse cloth, he still looked as handsome as ever. His face was a little pale, clearly due to the exhaustion he had been through recently. His body gave off the fragrance of a bath, and his golden hair was combed behind his head. Compared to before, he looked like a completely different person. Although Nian Bing did not practice martial skills, his slender figure, broad shoulders, and broad back combined with his extraordinarily handsome face gave him quite a bit of lethality. Even Luo Ro, who had always been confident in her determination, could not help but tremble slightly. Nian Bing walked to the sofa beside Luo Ro and sat down. He let out a long breath and said, "So comfortable. Miss Luo Ro, you can say what you want now. If you're here to admit defeat, then can I ask you for one thing?" Although Luo Ro slightly lost her composure, she quickly recovered. She smiled and said, "No, I'm here to collect the fruits of victory that I deserve." Nian Bing leaned on the armrest of the sofa and looked at Luo Ro calmly. He made a gesture of invitation and said, "I'd like to hear what our wise woman has found." Luo Ro smiled confidently. She stood up and walked to the center of the room. She stopped and turned her back to Nian Bing said, "Is the demon killer good enough?" Hearing the words demon killer, Nian Bing almost jumped up from the sofa. His heart beat rapidly. Although he had always thought highly of Luo Ro, he didn't expect that she could find out about this. After a few seconds of silence, he tried to calm down. "Why?" Luo Ro turned around and looked at Nian Bing with a smile. Her eyes were shining with wisdom. "There are many reasons. I have to admit that you're the strongest opponent I've ever met. You can still keep calm in this situation, which proves that you're not a simple person. I didn't expect you to be an assassin. But when I learned that you were often not in the woodshed at night, I became suspicious. After a bold guess and careful analysis, I'm almost certain that you're the demon killer who killed Liao San." At this moment, Nian Bing calmed down because he realized that even if Luo Ro had guessed everything, the fact that she had come to find him alone meant that she hadn't spread the news. This was enough. At least he still had some leeway. "Please continue." Luo Ro smiled and said, "First of all, I asked Jing, and she told me in detail how she met you. The reason you met was because of Liao San, right? Moreover, Liao San once severely humiliated you. That's the source of your hatred." Nian Bing smiled. "Liao San was known as a mangy dog. There are many people who have a grudge against him, and even more people who hate him more than I do. Just based on this, you can say that I am the demon killer envoy? That's a little too arbitrary." Luo Ro smiled. "Of course it's not just that. I'm afraid you don't have any alibi on the night of Liao San's death. I've asked Jing and Ling. At that time, you didn't appear anywhere in the Cool Breeze study or the Magician's Guild. To be more precise, you must have attacked Liao San after leaving the Magus Guild and before returning to Breeze Cottage. Furthermore, according to my investigation, the real cause of Liao San's death was ice magic. When the Ice Goddess Priestess investigated all the ice magi in the Magus Guild, they all said that they were somewhere else at the time. I heard from Ling that your control over magic is extremely strong, and you have the strength of a great ice magus. Only you can kill Liao San. Combining these points and my intuition, I'm very certain that you're the demon killer who killed Liao San. Of course, you might have a companion who specializes in fire magic, but I can't find out who he is." Nian Bing smiled. "A wise woman isn't a god. Don't you think your reasons are far-fetched? It's more of your subjective opinion than anything else. You can't prove that I'm the demon killer with just these reasons. Otherwise, President Long would have found out as well. He would have come to settle the score with me already." Luo Ro looked at the stubborn Yen Bing and couldn't help but reveal a trace of hesitation in her eyes. That's right. These are just my guesses. I don't have any witnesses or evidence. However, my intuition tells me that the person is you. Yen Bing smiled. I have to admit that Miss Luo Ro is very smart. However, you've already lost our bet. Luo Ro frowned. Don't tell me you don't want to admit that you're the demon killer? Don't worry, Liao San isn't a good person. Even if you admit that you're the demon killer, I won't do anything to you. I won't tell anyone about this. Yen Bing shook her head. I've never worried about this. First of all, I trust Miss Wise Woman. Secondly, even if you tell anyone, no one will believe you. Even if President Long Ji knows that you're telling the truth, he'll still exonerate me. Before you came to find me, Ling should have told you how important I am to the Union. To be honest, although your guesses lack evidence, they're correct. Yes, I'm the demon killer who killed Liao San. I never leave any traces behind. Although you've guessed it, there's no way you can prove it. Luo Ro smiled. Her charming face shone with a dazzling radiance. Good. It's really you. Now that you've admitted it, shouldn't we consider how you're going to fulfill your end of the bet? Yen Bing also smiled. No, of course not. I've said it before. Although you've guessed it, you've still lost the bet. Luo Ro's expression changed. What do you mean? Just because I don't have any evidence, you're saying that I've lost? Our bet was to guess your profession. I've already guessed it. As a man, you won't go back on your word, will you? Yen Bing laughed. What a joke. Even if I'm not a good person, I won't go back on my word. A win is a win, a loss is a loss. I understand the principle of accepting a loss. The reason why I said you've lost is because you've guessed my profession wrong. Being an assassin isn't my true profession. It's just that I didn't like that Liao San. Of course, I'm not a magician either. Luo Ro was completely stunned. From Yen Bing's eyes, she could see that Yen Bing wasn't lying. His huge confidence couldn't be faked. No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. If you weren't a professional magician or assassin, how could you have your current achievements? You're the youngest great magician. Yen Bing's eyes shone with a terrifying radiance. He said indifferently, It's time to settle some things. Miss Luo Ro, I'll use my actions to tell you what my true profession is. Please come with me. Saying that, he turned around and wanted to walk towards the door. Just as he walked to the door, there was a knock. Yen Bing opened the door and saw Long Ling holding a brand new ice magician's robe. When she saw Yen Bing, she couldn't help but smile. How did your talk go? This is for you. Change into it. Yen Bing took the robe. Looking at Long Ling's gentle eyes, his heart couldn't help but tremble. If he could marry such a wife, he would be lucky. The thought came quickly but disappeared even faster. After a slight hesitation, he immediately returned to normal. We've finished talking. We're about to go out. Ling you come with us. The dragon spirit smiled faintly and said, Me? Won't it affect you? Yen Bing shook his head and said, Of course not. We're all friends. Wait a moment, I'll go change. After a while, when Yen Bing came out of the bathroom, he had turned back into a great ice magician. Long Ling looked at him who had regained his handsome appearance. She couldn't help but give a kind smile. Luo Ro on the side lowered her head and didn't say anything. She seemed to be thinking about something. Two beautiful ladies, we can set off. Long Ling curiously asked, Where are we going? Yen Bing mysteriously smiled and said, We're going to a place you're familiar with. Ling don't you want to know what I do? Long Ling stared blankly for a moment. You? Aren't you a magician? Don't tell me you have a side job? Yen Bing shook his head and said, No, you're wrong. Being a magician is my side job. Let's go, Miss Ling Miss Ro. When Luo Ro heard Yen Bing call her Ro for the first time, she couldn't help but feel strange. She raised her head and looked at him. Okay, I want to see how you're going to prove it. Let's go. After leaving the Magician Guild, Luo Ro asked, "Is the place we're going to far? How do you plan on bringing us there?" Nian Bing stared blankly for a moment and said, "It's not near. It's in the center of the city." Luo Ro stared at him with wide eyes and said, "You can't be thinking of having us walk with you, right? Hey, we're ladies. We really have to hand it to you." As she said that, she walked to the side of the street and waved her hand. Nian Bing looked in the direction she waved her hand and saw a luxurious carriage quickly approaching. 4 tall white horses reminded him of the past. That's right, a dignified countess should have a carriage. This is good, they don't have to walk. Luo Ro turned around and said, "Get on the carriage. I really don't understand what kind of person you are." Hearing her strange words, Nian Bing only smiled slightly. The 3 of them got on the carriage together. The carriage emitted a faint fragrance. The cushions were very soft and very comfortable to sit on. Nian Bing asked Luo Ro, "Where are we going?" "You should at least give the coachman an accurate address." Smiling slightly, Nian Bing said, "Let's go to the center of the city first. You'll know when we get there." The carriage moved forward quickly. The carriage with the noble insignia of the Count's residence sped through the city. The passers-by avoided it when they saw it. There was almost no delay. In less than an hour, they had brought Nian Bing and the other 2 to the most prosperous area in the center of Snow City. Along the way, Nian Bing didn't say a word. He just sat there with his eyes closed. Long Ling was surprised to find that he was actually meditating. Her heart ached for no reason. These days, he was really too tired. "Hey, wake up." Luo Ro pushed Nian Bing, who had his eyes closed, with some dissatisfaction. Nian Bing opened his eyes and lifted the curtain to look outside. He said, "Okay, let's stop here. Ladies, we should get off the carriage." No matter how smart Luo Ro was, she couldn't figure out what Nian Bing was planning. She frowned and followed Nian Bing out of the carriage with Long Ling. They looked around. This was the central street of Ice Snow City. Nian Bing pointed to one of the most conspicuous signs on the side of the road and said, "Let's go. This is our destination." Long Ling and Luo Ro couldn't be more familiar with that sign. It was one of the most famous restaurants in Ice Snow City, Qing Feng Zhai. Luo Ro looked at Nian Bing said with an unkind expression, "Don't tell me that your real profession is chopping wood. If that's the case, I don't think I need to go in. I feel ashamed to be with a person who doesn't abide by her bet." Nian Bing looked at Luo Ro's eyes and didn't give in. The 2 of them had the same blue eyes, and each of them revealed a confident radiance. They looked at each other. Luo Ro's spiritual power naturally couldn't be compared to Nian Bing's, who had always been practicing magic. Soon, she lost. "Hey, what's going on? Tell me." Chapter 24. Nian Bing smiled faintly. "Miss Ro, you only need to remember one condition of your loss. Come, let's go in." Nian Bing, who had changed into a magician's robe, looked very different from before. The attendants at the entrance didn't recognize him at all, but these attendants naturally recognized Long Ling and Luo Ro. They hurried forward and respectfully said, "The 2 ladies have arrived. Are you here to see our young mistress?" Long Ling paused and looked at Nian Bing. Nian Bing said, "Call Miss Xuejing as well. We'll settle everything once and for all so she won't continue to misunderstand me." Long Ling nodded. "Then let's go in." The 3 followed the attendants into the main hall of the Breeze Pavilion. Compared to the Great Accomplishment Pavilion, this hall was much smaller, but the decorations were very unique. There were wooden decorations everywhere, and even the tables and chairs were no exception. They were all made of special wood. The entire hall exuded a faint fragrance, and soft music came from behind a curtain. It seemed to be the sound of a zither. The graceful music was very light, and there was no sense of noise. Nian Bing couldn't help but praise inwardly. This was the first time he had come to this hall. He thought to himself, Breeze Pavilion's fame wasn't due to luck. Every detail of this place was the result of careful consideration. Nian Bing said to the attendant, "Please ask Miss Xuejing to come out." We have something to ask of her. The attendant looked at Nian Bing in confusion. He only just realized that this man looked familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen him before. Of course, he had seen Nian Bing before. But how could the Nian Bing when he was chopping firewood compare to this in terms of attire and temperament? The attendant looked at Long Ling and Luo Ro with uncertainty. Luo Ro nodded at him. Go, tell Silence that Ling and I are here. Tell her to come out quickly. Luo Ro couldn't wait to find out what Nian Bing was up to. Looking at Nian Bing's confident expression, she suddenly felt a sense of anticipation. After all, there weren't many things in Snowy City that could surprise her. She had always been known for her ability to devise strategies and win battles from 1,000 miles away. However, ever since Nian Bing's appearance, she had been surprised more and more, almost never stopping for a moment. Whether it was the ice cream cake that was given to her as a birthday present or the investigation of the Demon's Lair incident, she was filled with curiosity towards Nian Bing. Just when she thought that she had fully understood this person suddenly told her that everything she knew was wrong. At this moment, her feelings were extremely complicated, and she really wanted to find out the truth. After the waiter left, Nian Bing pulled a chair over and sat down. She gestured to the two girls and smiled. What's wrong? You two don't want to sit for a while? Long Ling smiled. We've been sitting for a while, I'll just stand for a while. I once heard Mother say that a girl's figure will be affected if she sits too much. Luo Ro walked to Nian Bing's side, bent down, and whispered in his ear, Silence is coming out. Have you thought about how to end this? Nian Bing smiled faintly. Of course I've thought about it. Miss Wise Girl, I heard that you're already engaged. Aren't you afraid that others will misunderstand you sitting so close to me? Luo Ro was stunned, and her eyes fell on Long Ling. You told him? Ling, you're not jealous, are you? Long Ling heard this, and her face turned red. Ro, don't say that. Nian Bing and I are just friends, why would I be jealous? I'm just telling him the truth to prevent him from doing anything overboard. Nian Bing chuckled and said, No. I've always known my limits. Why would Ling misunderstand? Long Ling rolled her eyes at him. Misunderstand? I'm afraid not. I clearly remember that someone gave me a birthday present that day, and he didn't let us eat it. The way she spoke, it was as if she was pouting coquettishly to her boyfriend. Her beautiful eyes moved, and the waiters at the side all fell into a daze. Nian Bing thought to himself, it seems that Long Ling does have some feelings for me. I'm afraid I can't stay in Ice Snow City for too long. Luo Ro laughed. You're still saying you're not jealous? Look at you. Long Ling was embarrassed, and just as she was about to refute, she heard a clear voice. Ling Ro, you're both here. I'm just frustrated and don't know what to do. Great, since you're all here, let's ask Uncle Ming to make us something good to eat. As long as I pester him, he'll definitely agree. A red figure appeared along with the voice. Nian Bing suddenly realized that red was the most suitable color for Xuejing. When she wore a red dress, she was like a ball of fire that could melt everything. As Long Ling and Luo Ro were standing in front of Nian Bing, blocking most of his body, Xuejing did not notice him. She came in front of the two girls, looked at Long Ling in surprise, and said, Ling, what's wrong with you? Why is your face so red? Are you sick? When Luo Ro heard Xuejing's question, she immediately laughed out loud. Long Ling was so embarrassed that she wished there was a hole in the ground to hide in. Nian Bing stood up and helped Long Ling out of the situation. Miss Xuejing, we meet again. The moment the tall Nian Bing stood up, he immediately attracted Xuejing's attention. Seeing him, Xuejing's expression changed greatly, and she said coldly, It's you? Who let you come to our cool breeze fasting again? A small temple like ours can't support a great god like you. Please leave, we don't welcome you. Nian Bing did not mind. He smiled faintly and said, Miss Xuejing, don't misunderstand. Today, let's just say that I am a guest here. Since Cool Breeze Fasting is open for business, Then I don't think you have any reason to refuse a magician as a guest, right? Xuejing snorted. Just as she was about to say something, Luo Ro hurriedly said, "Silence, let's not be calculative about the past. Today we came here with him to see how he would embarrass himself. Consider it as giving me face, okay?" Xuejing paused and asked doubtfully, "What's going on?" Nian Bing said, "Miss Xuejing, I think you must want to know why I went to De Qingxian, and then came to Cool Breeze fasting to chop wood. With my status as a magician, there was no need for me to do this, but I really did." Hearing this, Xuejing and Long Ling did not feel anything, but Luo Ro's heart began to beat faster. That's right. A smart person like him would never do something so pointless. Since he came to Cool Breeze fasting to chop wood, he naturally had his reasons. It was definitely not as simple as hiding his identity to deal with the demon's lair. Thinking of this, Luo Ro felt for the first time that she was about to lose the bet with Nian Bing. Xuejing snorted and said, "People like you don't have good intentions coming to the Cool Breeze sect. How would I know what's wrong with your head? Why do you insist on chopping firewood? You're a good magician. I think you're either a fool or a lunatic." Nian Bing said indifferently, "That's right. I came to Cool Breeze fasting with good intentions, but not with bad intentions. You all want to know why, right? Very easy, I will tell you now. I will use my actions to tell you. Miss Xuejing, can you please ask Master Ming Yuan to come out? Actually, I came to Cool Breeze fasting mainly for him." Xuejing was stunned and said, "For Uncle Ming?" She did not expect that Nian Bing would give such an answer. Nian Bing smiled and said, "That's right. As long as you ask Master Ming to come out, everything will be clear." Xuejing thought for a moment and said, "Okay, then you wait. I want to see what kind of relationship you have with Uncle Ming. He doesn't know you." After saying this, she ran away like a red cloud. Nian Bing said to the waiter, "Cool Breeze Fasting is one of the best restaurants in Ice City. I think you have all kinds of tableware here. Please bring me a big plate with a diameter of 1 meter. The bottom of the plate must be flat. At the same time, bring me 9 cucumbers and 3 sugarcane. Thank you. As for the final amount, I will calculate it for you." Although the waiter saw that there seemed to be some conflict between Nian Bing and Xuejing, he was, after all, brought here by Long Ling and Luo Ro. He did not say anything and immediately went to prepare it. Long Ling said in surprise, "Nian Bing, what do you want a plate for? And cucumbers? Are you going to ask Uncle Ming to cook for us in front of everyone? That's impossible. Uncle Ming's skills must not be leaked." Nian Bing sighed and said, "Why can't we share it with others? If others can learn it, it'll be a skill in itself. It's because we're so selfish. There are so many good things that haven't been passed down since ancient times. Don't be impatient. Just wait and see." After a while, Ming Yuan and Xuejing came out first. Xuejing walked to Nian Bing's side and said, "Uncle Ming has come out. Now you can tell me why you came to Cool Breeze fasting to find Uncle Ming." As she spoke, her eyes revealed a look of ridicule. "It shouldn't be to ask Uncle Ming to be your master, right?" Nian Bing smiled indifferently and said, "Why not? As the saying goes, the one who reaches the top is the teacher. Master Ming, I don't know if you still remember the chant I told you that day." When Ming Yuan came out and saw Nian Bing in magician's attire, he was a little stunned. When Nian Bing asked him, he saw that the youth in front of him wearing magician's attire was the woodcutter who saw him make the golden incense rings that day. He asked doubtfully, How did you become a magician?" "Because something happened in the city that day, I didn't have time to take care of it. When I came to find you later, you had already left Cool Breeze fasting. I was really curious. How did you know the secret to making the golden incense rings?" "It was passed down from generation to generation by my master. This secret is impossible for outsiders to know. So, although other places sell golden incense rings, they are not authentic. They are far inferior to our Cool Breeze fasting's golden incense rings." Nian Bing smiled and said, "The chant was naturally passed down by my master. Master Ming, you will soon understand." At this time, the waiter who went to get the items returned. He held a large plate in his hand and walked to Nian Bing's side. Nian Bing stretched out her right hand and steadily received the plate. She placed it on a square table next to her. The plate was 1 meter in diameter and took up almost the entire table. Nian Bing smiled and said, "Now the answer can be revealed. Master Ming, in the culinary world, there is a saying that the fist never leaves the hand and the song never leaves the mouth. You must have your favorite knife on you. I want to borrow it." Ming Yuan's expression changed and he said coldly, "No, for a chef, the knife is his life. This is no different from a martial artist." Nian Bing still had a smile on her face. "Is that so? I think your master should have told you that there was a person who helped him when he was in danger and taught him 3 great skills. That was how he gained the reputation of being an immortal chef." Hearing this, Ming Yuan was shocked. "How did you know?" His voice had changed. It should be known that this matter was extremely confidential. His master had only told him. Nian Bing smiled and said, "Because the person who helped your master was my master." Ming Yuan's whole body trembled. You are a ghost." Nian Bing stopped Ming Yuan from continuing. She stretched out her hand and said, "Can I borrow a knife, Master Ming?" Ming Yuan's eyes showed a trace of respect. He looked at the cucumber and sugarcane on the plate and nodded. "Of course." He reached into his robes, and a sharp knife that was about 2 feet long appeared in his hand. Apart from Nian Bing, no one else present could tell where the knife had come from on Ming Yuan's body. Nian Bing took the saber and looked at the faint green light flowing on the blade. He praised, "It's so good. This must be the immortal slash, the treasured saber of the immortal chef." It's said that this saber once sliced open an entire cow in an instant, and there wasn't a single drop of blood on it. It really is a good saber. Ming Yuan stood with his hands by his side and said, "I don't dare. In front of your master's true yang, this knife can only be regarded as a foil at most." Because Nian Bing had told him the secret, he did not have the slightest doubt about Nian Bing's identity. Because the incantation of the golden incense ring was told by his master to that benefactor. Nian Bing smiled. He glanced at the 3 women around him, who were in a daze, and said, "I'm going to start now. Although the weather is gradually turning cold, the heat is still there. Today I'll serve a cooling dish for the 3 ladies. I hope you'll like it. Please step back a little. Thank you." At this moment, even Xue Jing, who was the most straightforward of them all, could tell that Nian Bing was no ordinary person. She was extremely familiar with Ming Yuan. Back then, in order to invite Ming Yuan to be the head chef of the Clear Wind Fasting, who knew how much effort he had put into persuading him. Although Ming Yuan was only the head chef in name, he had a transcendent status in the Clear Wind Fasting. Even her father, Xue Ji, was extremely respectful when he saw him, always referring to him as a brother. This was the first time she had seen such a respectful expression on Ming Yuan's face, and the person who made this expression was the mysterious Nian Bing in front of her, the Nian Bing who made her feel so flustered. Nian Bing moved. She picked up a few chopsticks from the table next to her and placed them neatly at the foot of the table. Then she took out the cucumber and sugarcane from the big plate one by one and placed them on the chopstick. Her intention was obvious. She did not want the ingredients to be contaminated with dust. In the end, there was only 1 cucumber left in her hand. Nian Bing slowly lifted the cucumber with his left hand. Although the 9 cucumbers that the waiter had brought met Nian Bing's requirements in terms of weight, they all had different shape. Nian Bing looked at the cucumbers. He seemed to have forgotten everything around him, and only the green cucumber was in his eyes. He held Ming Yuan's knife in his right hand and remained still. Xuejing looked at Nian Bing standing there strangely and could not help but feel a little impatient. Just as she was about to say something, she was stopped by Ming Yuan. Ming Yuan shook his head at Xuejing. indicating that she should not disturb Nian Bing. Then he focused on Nian Bing's hand, waiting for the scene that he had been waiting for to happen. Finally, Nian Bing moved. To be more precise, it was his right hand that moved. His left hand was still holding onto the cucumber's tail like a rock, while the blade in his right hand glowed with a faint green light as he gently cut 2 inches below the cucumber's head. This was the first cut. Xuejing almost laughed out loud. After watching for a long time, it turned out that it was just the first cut on the cucumber. She tried her best to cover her mouth to prevent herself from laughing out loud. However, she soon could not laugh, because Nian Bing turned his wrist slightly and cut again. This time, he cut below the first cut. A piece of cucumber as thin as paper appeared. The most peculiar thing was that this piece of cucumber was only slightly connected to the top and bottom. According to common sense, the weight of the cucumber's head should be enough to break it, but in fact, they were still connected. Ming Yuan subconsciously exclaimed, "The lotus-cut silk knife technique. Good knife technique." After saying this, he hurriedly covered his mouth, but the excitement in his eyes could not be concealed. As a top chef, what could be more perfect than seeing the cooking skills in his imagination? Nian Bing did not hear Ming Yuan's voice at all. His attention was completely focused on the cucumber. The knife moved again, but this time, it was not as slow as before. The knife was like snow, and his wrist seemed to be dancing in the air. Even with Ming Yuan's eyesight, he could not see clearly what Nian Bing was doing. The cucumber fell slowly, and each piece was slightly connected. With the weight of the cucumber's head, it slowly fell to the big plate. The cucumber's head was aimed at the center of the whole plate. The knife continued to flash. Everyone present was stunned. Luo Ro seemed to see the scene of Nian Bing cutting the cake again, but it was obvious that the knife technique of cutting cucumber was much more difficult than cutting the cake. Each piece of cucumber was not only extremely thin, but also very uniform. Even the place where each piece was connected to the other was so uniform, without any flaw. The cucumber's head finally fell to the center of the plate. The cucumber, which was less than a foot long, had now become about 1.5 feet long. The knife in Nian Bing's hand was still flashing, and the cucumber was gradually elongated. At this moment, Nian Bing's left hand finally moved. His wrist shook slightly, and at the moment when the knife stopped, the cucumber slices cleverly formed a ring behind the cucumber's head. The knife continued to flash, and the cucumber slices gradually elongated. When the cucumber had formed 3 rings on one side of the plate, Nian Bing's knife finally reached the end of the cucumber. He didn't continue to cut, but placed the end of the cucumber on the edge of the plate. In the eyes of the crowd, such knife technique could only be described as miraculous. The miracle continued. The second cucumber jumped into Nian Bing's hand. This time, it was still staring, but the time it took to stare was obviously shorter. When the knife light flashed again, the same thing happened to the first cucumber. The knife light repeated, but the crowd's eyes didn't leave the knife and cucumber in Nian Bing's hand. Although it was a repetitive action, in their eyes the action was so vivid. The cucumber continued to elongate, and it still coiled 3 times. This was the second cucumber, then the third, the fourth. Every cucumber went through the same process. The sharp-eyed Luo Ro was surprised to see that Nian Bing's cucumber was emitting a layer of faint white mist. In the beginning, the others didn't notice this, but when the 5th cucumber was completed, the entire 1-meter-wide plate was covered in a faint white mist. The green cucumber was faintly discernible, and it looked extremely strange. At some point, the master of the cool breeze study, Xueji, had arrived behind his daughter. The others were in a daze, and no one noticed his arrival. When Xueji saw Nian Bing's knife light flashing rapidly, he immediately followed in the footsteps of the others. He had the strength of a martial fighter, and naturally, his eyesight was unique. Nian Bing's movements were extremely fast, as if she didn't even need to think. Looking at the gradually elongating cucumber, Xueji asked himself. His control over his strength is definitely not as good as Nian Bing's. That exquisite knife technique has reached the peak of perfection, and it's amazing. When all 9 cucumbers were completed, the entire plate was almost filled. The 9 cucumbers coiled on the plate were in the exact same position. The 9 cucumbers' heads were slightly raised, and they were placed together in the center of the plate. Even the 9 cucumbers' tails were strangely maintained in the same position. The knife light flashed, and it flew towards Ming Yuan. Ming Yuan was startled, and he instinctively raised his hand to block. What he caught was the handle of the knife. Master Ming, thank you for the knife. Nian Bing's mind seemed to be completely immersed in the dishes in front of her. Her gaze fell on the jade-green cucumbers on the plate, and looked at the faint white icy mist rising into the air. She reached into her chest and took out a small cloth bag. It was the tool she used to make pigeon meat rice for Feng Nu in the watercraft ironware shop. Without using her eyes to look, her index and middle fingers naturally reached into the cloth bag. When her fingers left the cloth bag, they brought out a cold light. It was a small knife, less than 5 inches long. The tip of the knife was very small, and the blade and the handle were the same length, each 2.5 inches. The front half of the blade was actually emitting a faint blue light, and there seemed to be a ferocious carving on the side of the blade. Ming Yuan took a deep breath and muttered to himself, "Ghost carving godly knife." Nian Bing continued, "The work of the gods, the blue flame, the carving of dragons and phoenixes, and the cold blade. It's the ghost carving." Ming Yuan glanced at Nian Bing. When the ghost carving appears, who can compete? Looking at the ghost carving, the respect in his eyes became more intense. Nian Bing's gaze fell on the 9 cucumbers in the middle of the plate. Although the ghost carving is good, it depends on who is using it. I hope I didn't disgrace Master's reputation. His waist suddenly bent as if it was broken. His thighs were pressed against the edge of the table, and his entire body was at a 90-degree angle. His face was just above the center of the plate. His wrist trembled slightly, and in an instant, he waved the knife 9 times, leaving a mark on each of the 9 cucumbers. Ming Yuan suddenly understood what Nian Bing was trying to do, and his eyes were filled with shock. Originally, he was somewhat unconvinced, but when he saw Nian Bing's first strike, he understood that in terms of knife skills, he was far from being a match for this young man in front of him. Ming Yuan was not the only one present who knew what was good for him. Extreme Snow gasped, "Could this be the legendary dragon dance gathering technique? Heavens, does this really exist?" Reality quickly answered Extreme Snow's question. Nian Bing waved the knife, and a faint blue light danced between his 5 fingers like a cold flame. As the knife moved, he softly chanted, "Where the ghost carving hand falls, the heavens and earth will change, carving 100 waves, divine work of art will last for eternity, and the waning moon will reflect the cold spring." Only to see that the blue light was constantly revolving in the center of the plate. Xue Ji could clearly see that every time he chanted a word, a mark would appear on the heads of the 9 cucumbers. Green fragments would then float down. When the last word was uttered, including the first 9 slashes, a total of 261 slashes were completed in this short chanting time. A circle of green fragments was neatly scattered in the middle of the plate, forming a circular dark green pattern. The pattern was very clear, and there was not the slightest difference in the pattern. All the fragments were exactly the same size. The most shocking thing was the carvings on top of the fragment. 9 jade-like carvings raised their heads, antlers, mustaches at the corners of their mouths, and pearls below their foreheads. Those were clearly 9 jade-like dragon heads. The dragon heads were vivid and lifelike, with their heads held high, as if they were breathing out clouds. Ghost Condor Concealment. Nian Bing looked at those 9 dragon heads and lightly sighed. "It's a pity, I haven't reached the peak of the dragon condor dance." Ming Yuan hurriedly asked, "Then what is the peak?" Nian Bing smiled indifferently. 9 dragons soaring in the clouds, ever-changing. As he spoke, Nian Bing held the two ends of the plate with both hands, and with a slight force, the plate left the table. He was very careful, as if he was afraid of any deviation. At this time, Xuejing and Long Ling were already in a daze. Only Luo Ro's eyes were still slightly lively, and there was already something in her eyes. Nian Bing's body exuded a layer of faint blue light. The light followed his gaze and condensed on the table. Gradually, a circular ice cube that was about the size of a human hand appeared on the table. The surface of the ice cube was extremely smooth. It looked like a circular piece that was about an inch thick. This was the most basic ice spell, but when Nian Bing used it, the power of control and the effect was definitely more shocking than a fourth-level spell. The plate was put down again and landed on the ice block. The ice block was located at the center of the plate. With a light touch of the edge of the plate actually slowly rotated, and the ghost condor dance reappeared. When the tail of each cucumber turned in front of Nian Bing, the blue light would flash 5 times. After 3 rounds, 135 cuts, his hand only seemed to tremble a few times. The jade green chips were spread out on the ground, forming 9 cloud-like shapes. Under them, 9 lifelike emerald dragon tails appeared. The moment the dragon tails appeared, the 9 cucumbers on the plate seemed to come alive, like 9 green dragons circling in the clouds. The plate was still rotating slowly, and the 9 green dragons floated above the clouds. They seemed to be playing and seemed to be greeting each other. The power of the 9 heads gathering was so real. Nian Bing did not stop. He picked up one of the 3 sugarcane sections, and the ghost condor dance flashed, and the sugarcane skin fell naturally. This time, it did not land on the plate but on the side. The ghost condor dance and the milky white sugarcane changed under the knife. When the plate stopped rotating, the ghost condor dance in Nian Bing's hand also stopped. What appeared in his hand was a strange shape. The bottom was a base, and the top was connected to a straight white pole that was only as thick as a chopstick. At the top was a milky white ball. The surface of the ball was very bright, and looked as breathtaking as white jade. Knowledgeable people like Ming Yuan and Xueji knew that the ball looked simple, but it was very difficult to make it so perfectly round and flawless. However, Nian Bing had surprised them enough. At this time, their hearts were a little numb. Nian Bing reached into the plate, and carefully placed the carved sugarcane in the center of the 9 dragon heads, like 9 dragons holding a pearl. Perfect. Other than perfect, no one could think of any other word to describe what was in front of them. The plate rotated again, and Nian Bing picked up the other 2 sugarcane sections at the same time. A light blue light gathered in his hand. This time, he did not peel the sugarcane. Instead, he placed the 2 sugarcane sections against each other and quickly rubbed them. What could the sugarcane produce? It was nothing more than juice. However, the sugarcane under the extreme cold was different. The milky white ice powder floated down, and with a sweet smell, it scattered on the plate. Under the effect of the ice powder, the originally weakened ice fog on the plate rose again. The sugarcane was not finished, and was thrown to one side by Nian Bing. The ice powder formed by the sugarcane had already spread to every corner of the plate. The 9 lifelike azure dragons held the pearl together with the momentum of riding the clouds. The green on the plate was not monotonous. Because of the different shades, it brought a sense of vitality. Together with the ice fog and sugarcane pearls, everything was so perfect. Nian Bing clapped his hands, smiled lightly and said, "The fragrance of the cucumber, together with the sweetness of the sugarcane, complemented by the air of frost, it is the most suitable to use to relieve the heat and cold." Ming Yuan's eyes shone brightly. "Can you tell me the name of this dish?" Nian Bing smiled lightly and said word by word, 9 green divine, dragon, ice, cloud, hidden. Chapter 25. That's right, it was the 9 azure divine dragon Bing Yunin. This was also one of the 7 famous dishes after Nian Bing became famous. Looking at the misty 9 azure divine dragon Bing Yunin in front of them, everyone present had a feeling of not being able to eat it. After all, this could no longer be described as a dish, it was clearly a piece of art. A precious piece of art. Nian Bing used a total of 15 minutes to finish carving this dish. Looking at the lingering icy mist and the lifelike 9 azure dragons, no one actually made the first move. Nian Bing's gaze fell on Luoro. "Miss Wise Girl, I think that now you should know what I do. That's right, my true profession is actually a chef. Miss Xuejing, the reason why I chose to enter either the Great Accomplishment Pavilion or the Clear Wind Study was to discuss cooking with the head chef. There was no other purpose. I think that the misunderstanding between us can be resolved here. This dish can already prove a lot. Perhaps you are confused. As a magician, why would I learn to cook? I can clearly tell you that in my heart, a chef is definitely a noble profession that can be compared to a magician. With my own cooking skills, I can satisfy countless people's desire to eat. Cooking is an art, and carrying it forward is my goal. As for magic, it is only a skill that assists in cooking. I haven't left my master for long. For me, the long road to pursuing cooking is still very long. Alright, that's all I have to say. Everyone, take your time to taste it. If the icy mist dissipates, this dish will also lose its original taste. I have already explained everything that needs to be explained. Goodbye everyone. Ling Er, you can stay. I will go back first. After putting away her things and putting the cloth bag into her bosom, Nian Bing slightly nodded to everyone and turned to leave. No one stopped her. Everyone's mind was still on the dish in front of them. Nian Bing's voice kept echoing in their minds. Ming Yuan, who was also a chef, was the first to react. He took a pair of chopsticks from the side and handed them to Xueji and the 3 girls. He was the first to move. The chopsticks moved forward and placed a piece of cucumber in front of him. As soon as the chopsticks touched the cucumber piece naturally separated from the azure dragon. There was no feeling of connection at all. Seeing Ming Yuan move, the others followed suit. They put a few pieces of cucumber into their mouth. The paper-thin cucumber melted in their mouths, turning into a sweet liquid that flowed into their stomach. It was an indescribable taste. All 36 million pores in their bodies seemed to open up at this moment. The cold air connected with the heavens and the earth. The refreshing feeling made them feel as if they were floating in the air. Not only did the heat in their bodies disappear, even their minds recovered and they woke up in the sweetness. Luo Ro, Long Ling, and Xuejing's eyes flashed. This kind of wonderful taste was what girls loved the most. Without stopping, the chopsticks flew through the icy mist. After a while, the 9 azure divine dragon had completely entered the stomachs of the 5 people before the icy mist disappeared. Cool, sweet, refreshing, and refreshing. The refreshing feeling of the whole body was so wonderful. What was even more ingenious was that the Clear Wind restaurant focused on simplicity and elegance. This dish with simple ingredients perfectly matched the characteristics of the restaurant. Ming Yuan put down the chopsticks in his hand, closed his eyes and murmured, "The fragrance of the cucumber is completely released in the cold. Coupled with the sweetness of the sugarcane, it's refreshing and transparent. What a magical dish." Xueji looked at Ming Yuan and said, "Little Ming, if you were to cook this dish, would you be able to achieve this kind of effect?" Ming Yuan opened his eyes and looked at Xueji. He shook his head and said, "Definitely not. The key to this dish lies in 2 aspects. One is knife skills and the other is magic. It's the cold air emitted by magic that perfectly stimulated the fragrance of the cucumber. This is something that I definitely can't do. If I were to use ice to suppress it, the taste would be far worse. Moreover, who could make the ice powder formed by the sugarcane? Using magic in the kitchen, I'm afraid that only his master could think of it. What a good magic chef! It seems that the world of cooking is going to be in an uproar again. In the near future, he will definitely become a titan in the world of cooking. It seems that there is no end to cooking. There are too many things that I need to learn." Xuejing's eyes flashed with a strange light. She murmured, I really didn't expect him to be a chef. He actually came to the Cool Breeze restaurant to exchange pointers. He can make cucumbers, a low-cost vegetable, so delicious. If he's willing to help us, I'm afraid that our Cool Breeze restaurant will be rich. Father, let's invite him back to help Uncle Ming, okay? When Xueji heard his daughter's words, he was immediately moved. He turned his head to look at Ming Yuan. Ming Yuan sighed and said, "Big brother, if he's really willing to come, I can give up my position as the head chef. Although he's young, he's still the one who's reached the top. However, you've already heard what he said earlier. He has great ambitions and will definitely not settle for a small corner. I'm afraid that he won't agree to stay." Xueji sighed and said, "When I first met him, I could tell that he was different from the rest. However, I never thought that his excellence would be in cooking. No matter what, I have to try my best. As the saying goes, do your best and leave the rest to fate. If he's really unwilling to stay, at least I, Xueji, will make friends with him." "Oh right, little brother Ming, who's his master?" Ming Yuan's eyes shone with respect and said, "Big brother, you should have heard of the 5 gods of cooking, right?" Xueji nodded and said, "Of course I've heard of them. In my early years, I've studied them. Unfortunately, the 5 gods of cooking seem to have gone into seclusion. The 5 gods of cooking you're referring to should be the ghost, Lai, Tuo, Ling, and Miao." Ming Yuan said, "Yes, it's them. The Miao god of cooking is my master. Although they're listed as the 5 gods of cooking, there's still a gap between them. That young man just now is the head of the 5 gods of cooking, the successor of the ghost chef. In the beginning, it was senior ghost chef's help that allowed my master to achieve what he has. My master has always regarded the ghost chef as his benefactor. At the same time, he's also an existence similar to my master. Although my master is much older than senior ghost chef, every time he mentions senior ghost chef, he's extremely respectful. It's a pity that senior ghost chef left the cooking world for some reason, and there's been no news of him since then. I really didn't expect that his disciple would be born. Compared to senior ghost chef, perhaps he's still lacking, but he has more magic. I believe that after a few years of experience, it won't be difficult for him to reach the peak of senior ghost chef's achievements. He might even surpass him." Xueji's eyes revealed an extremely shocked expression. "Ghost chef? He's actually the ghost chef's disciple. Sigh, I'm so foolish. I didn't know how to cherish such a talent. If my peers knew that the ghost chef's disciple was chopping wood in our Breeze restaurant, I wonder how they'd laugh at me. Jing, go prepare a generous gift. We'll go to the Magician's Guild to apologize." Xuejing surprisingly didn't lose her temper. She nodded lightly and walked towards the back of the hall. Luo Ro and Long Ling looked at each other and said to Xueji, "Uncle Xue will be leaving first. He's actually a chef. This is beyond my expectations. I've always prided myself on my intelligence, but I've lost to him twice in a row. It seems that this title of wise woman should be revoked. Uncle, please say goodbye to silence." "Goodbye, Uncle." Luo Ro's feelings were more complicated than Xuejing's. Nian Bing had already used his actions to prove everything to her. She had lost the bet, but Luo Ro didn't have the slightest regret. She accepted her loss wholeheartedly. It was time to fulfill the promise. Nian Bing walked on the streets of Ice Snow City. Ever since he left the Peach Blossom Forest, this was the first time he put all his effort into making a dish. He was in a very good mood, not only because he solved the problem with Xuejing and Luo Ro, but also because he realized that after his knowledge of magic improved, it actually helped his culinary skills. When he was making the 9 azure dragons Bing Yun invisibility, his magic had already reached the realm of invisibility. Although it was only the lowest level of ice magic, he was already very satisfied with himself to be able to achieve this level. Other than the fact that he still couldn't compare to his master in terms of heat control, he had already taken another step forward in the fusion of magic and culinary skills. At his level of culinary skills, He didn't need to practice repeatedly to improve. What he needed now was an opportunity that could bring him enlightenment. As he was walking, the sound of wheels behind him suddenly rang out. Nian Bing subconsciously moved to the side of the road, only to find that the carriage he had been in before had stopped beside him. Luo Ro leaned out of the carriage and said in a strange voice, "Chef, get on. I'll send you back." Nian Bing smiled faintly. He didn't refuse and got on the carriage. Long Ling was sitting at the innermost part of the carriage. She lowered her head and didn't look at him. "I'll have to trouble you again, Miss Wise Girl," Nian Bing said politely. Luo Ro said unhappily, "Are you mocking me? Don't worry, a loss is a loss. I'll fulfill the promise. You can tell me your conditions now." Nian Bing was stunned and said, "I never thought of asking you to agree to any conditions. It was just a joke, why take it so seriously?" Luo Ro snorted and said, "If you agree to bet, you have to accept your loss. Since I've already lost, I naturally have to fulfill my promise. Who told you it was a joke? Although I'm a woman, I won't back down." Nian Bing smiled and shook his head. "No need, I really don't have anything to ask of you." Luo Ro's eyes revealed a strange light and said provocatively, "Didn't you ask me what would happen if you asked me to marry you? You can ask for that." Nian Bing was shocked and said with a smile, "No, I don't want to be chased by a group of your followers. Besides, don't you already have a fiancé?" Luo Ro said, "You don't dare? So what if I have a fiancé? I'm not married. You can pursue me. As long as you state your conditions, I'll naturally give you a chance." Nian Bing was stunned. He saw that Luo Ro seemed to be serious. He stretched his arm in front of Luo Ro and said, "Pinch me and see if I'm dreaming. Miss Wise Girl actually took the initiative to ask me to pursue you. It's really hard to believe." Luo Ro laughed and pinched Nian Bing's arm. Nian Bing felt pain and quickly retracted his arm. He smiled bitterly and said, "You don't have to use so much strength." Luo Ro snorted and said, "Who asked you to hide so deeply that even I was fooled? This is still considered light. I can't wait to kill you. Does it feel good to win against me?" Nian Bing's heart trembled slightly. He nodded and said with a smile, "I have to admit it does feel very good. However, I don't mean to be proud of it." Luo Ro stared at him and said, "You can state your conditions now. Don't tell me I'm not attractive to you at all?" Looking at Luo Ro's clear blue eyes, Nian Bing suddenly understood many things. Luo Ro didn't like him, but wanted to fight with him on another stage. If he proposed the conditions to pursue her or the conditions to marry her, he was afraid that trouble would come one after another. What a wise girl, she was indeed not simple. Her desire to win was even greater than a man's. However, since he understood this point, how could he be fooled? "Miss Wise Girl, you've already fulfilled your conditions." Luo Ro was stunned, but she quickly understood. She stared at Nian Bing and said, "You're so treacherous. Wasn't the pinch Nian Bing made earlier a condition?" Nian Bing put on an innocent look and said, "I'm treacherous? I won, but I didn't make things difficult for you. You still say that I'm treacherous. I think it's better for me to get off." Luo Ro finally couldn't keep her calm and said angrily, "Sit down and don't move. Am I worthy of you being so defensive? Am I a scourge or a beast?" Nian Bing smiled and didn't say anything. He sat there and didn't say anything. Luo Ro was facing this handsome man who didn't move by force or persuasion. Even if she was full of wisdom, she couldn't use it. Along the way, the three of them didn't speak. The carriage steadily stopped at the entrance of the Magician's Guild. Nian Bing was the first to get off the carriage. She helped Long Ling, who had been following her for a long time, to land steadily. She said to Wise Girl in the carriage, "Thank you, miss, for sending me off. We'll meet again if fate wills it." Luo Ro fiercely said, "Nian Bing, remember this. I'm not done with you. There will be a day when we will meet again. Let's go." The carriage sped away. Nian Bing helplessly shook her head. "A woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea. I really can't understand it. It seems like I don't have any enmity with her. Why is she always making things difficult for me? Long Ling finally opened her mouth. Ro has been very smart since she was young. No matter what it is, as long as she wants to learn it, she will learn it in the shortest amount of time. From young to now, no matter if it's a man or a woman, no one can beat her. She is very competitive. You've made her eat defeat several times in a row. Her competitive heart and curiosity towards you will naturally make her value you more. You simply can't get rid of her. Nian Bing didn't care and said, then make things difficult for her. I don't care about these things. In any case, after she finished learning the magic knowledge here, she would leave. Maybe she wouldn't have the chance to see Luo Ro again in the future. These things were no longer important. Ling let's go in. I still have to go back to the library to study. Wait a minute. Long Ling called out to Nian Bing, who was about to leave. Her eyes showed hesitation. Nian Bing asked, "What's wrong? Is there anything else?" Long Ling bit her lower lip and said, "Nian Bing, is this true? Is your main profession really a chef and not a magician?" Nian Bing smiled. He understood what Long Ling was worried about. He said softly, "Ling listen to me. Yes, a chef is my main profession, but at the same time, a magician is also my main profession." There was an inseparable relationship between the two. Although my culinary skills couldn't be said to be the best in the continent, it was still top-notch. However, my magic was still far from being the best. Thus, to me, culinary skills only required instant comprehension, while magic was something that I needed to learn more. You can rest assured, since I've joined the Union, and since I promised you before to help the Union, I will definitely fulfill my promise. I am a man. Hearing Nian Bing's words, Long Ling finally let out a sigh of relief. She took the initiative to grab Nian Bing's big hand and said emotionally, "Thank you, Nian Bing. I really don't know what to say." Looking at Long Ling's peerless gentleness, Nian Bing's heart was filled with tenderness. He subconsciously held her hand and said, "You don't have to say anything. The Union has helped me so much. This is what I should do." Long Ling's heart suddenly felt a trace of disappointment. She found that she wanted to hear Nian Bing say, "All of this is for your sake." "Nian Bing, Ling are you back?" Shi Jiu's voice appeared at the wrong time, causing Nian Bing and Long Ling to feel a trace of irritation. Nian Bing hurriedly let go of Long Ling's hand. For someone like him who had a greater goal, offending Shi Jiu now was definitely an unwise choice. "Big brother Shi Jiu, we're back." Nian Bing looked deeply at Long Ling and took the lead to walk into the Magician Union. Shi Jiu walked up to them with some dissatisfaction and said, "Where did you go just now? Why were you gone for so long? I went to the library to look for you, but I heard that you went out." Nian Bing said, "Just now, Miss Luo Ro asked me to go with her to Qinfeng Zhai to explain some things to Miss Xuejing. Ling happened to be there, so Miss Luo Ro invited her to go with her. See, she just sent us back." When Shi Jiu heard that Nian Bing and Long Ling didn't go out alone, his expression immediately improved. "In the future, it's best to tell me before you go out, so I don't have to worry." Nian Bing smiled and nodded, saying, "Big brother, I'm going back to the library first. You can chat with Ling." After saying that, she walked away with large strides. Long Ling had already walked into the Union at this time. Shi Jiu excitedly walked up to her. "Ling you left for half a day. I was almost worried to death. I bought you 2 new head ornaments. I think they're very suitable for you. Come with me to take a look. I think you'll definitely like them." Looking at Shi Jiu's eager face, Long Ling really couldn't find any interest. However, her gentle nature made her unable to refuse her senior brother. Just as she didn't know what to do, Long Ji's voice suddenly sounded, "Little Jiu, why aren't you cultivating in your room? What are you doing out here?" Shi Jiu was most afraid of this archmage-level master of his. When he saw Long Ji come over, he hurriedly said respectfully, "Master, Ling and Nian Bing just went out. I was a bit anxious, so I waited for them here." Long Zhi glanced at Long Ling and frowned. Since they've already returned, you can continue cultivating. Look at Nian Bing. She's younger than you by 10 years, but she's already entered the realm of Master Magician. I'll give you 1 more year. If you still can't reach the level of Master Magician, then don't say you're my disciple in the future. Seeing Long Zhi angry, Jiu was so scared that he didn't even dare to breathe loudly. He hurriedly said, "Yes, master. I'll go back and meditate." After saying that, he hurriedly left. Seeing Jiu leave, Long Zhi's expression immediately relaxed. He walked to his precious daughter's side and smiled. "You went out with Nian Bing?" "Father." When Long Ling saw her father, her previously tense nerves from preparing to deal with Jiu immediately relaxed. "Just now, Nian Bing and I went to Qingfeng together." Long Zhi said, "Nian Bing has indeed been working too hard these days. She should also go out more often. You've been very attentive since you were young. You need to take care of her daily life. Alright, what do you think of Nian Bing?" Long Ling stared blankly for a moment before saying, "He's very good. He's very motivated. Moreover, his comprehension is very high, not even below Ro-ers. He's also very good, although he's a bit mysterious." Long Zhi smiled and said, "Men should be like Nian Bing. As the saying goes, first establish a career, then settle down. A man, if he doesn't have any ability, can only be mediocre for life. I also feel that this child, Nian Bing, is not bad." Long Ling hesitated for a moment, but still decided to tell her father about this matter. "Father, actually, Nian Bing has another profession." At that moment, she recounted everything that had happened at Qingfeng in detail. Hearing his daughter's words, Long Zhi's expression changed. He never would have thought that Nian Bing, whom he had such high expectations for, would actually be a chef. Although he didn't discriminate against chefs, he certainly didn't want Nian Bing to waste her energy in other areas. That's it. However, Nian Bing said that his culinary skills have already reached a certain level. It seems that he doesn't need to practice anymore. What he needs more is to cultivate his magic. Uncle Shui seems to value Nian Bing a lot. I'm afraid that he'll come over in a while. Long Zhi's eyes flashed. No wonder, I always felt that Nian Bing seemed to have something on his mind. So he's actually a chef. Now I understand everything. No wonder he's at Qingfeng. Just as he finished speaking, the sound of horse hooves suddenly came from outside. Long Zhi smiled bitterly and said, "My big brother Shui has always been impatient. It seems that he's arrived. Ling you go in first. I'll take care of everything." Long Ling agreed. She had always had blind trust in her father. Once she said what was in her heart, she immediately felt much better. Turning around, she walked towards the library. Long Ling had just left when Xueji and Xuejing entered the Magician's Guild. The magicians guarding the entrance recognized them and naturally didn't stop them. Long Zhi laughed. "What wind blew Big Brother Shui and his niece here? You've really brought light to my canopy." Xueji took large strides in front of Long Zhi and smiled bitterly. "This elder brother doesn't care about the 3 treasures palace. This time, I've come to ask for your help." Long Zhi's eyes flashed and said, "Big brother, if you want Nian Bing to be a chef at your place, then don't say it out loud. You already have Ming Yuan at your place, but I can't do without him here." Xueji was stunned for a moment. He and Long Zhi had a very deep friendship. Naturally, he understood that if Long Zhi spoke like this, there would be no room for negotiation. He never thought that Nian Bing would be so important to Long Zhi. Even so, he still tried to probe. "Brother, Nian Bing is a chef. To be more accurate, he will definitely be a great chef in the future, so," Long Zhi said decisively, "Big brother, perhaps Nian Bing's culinary skills are superb, but I can also tell you that as a great magician, Nian Bing will also be a great magician in the future. He has already joined my guild, but he's only chopping firewood in your Cool Breeze restaurant. I definitely won't let him leave." Xuejing held a brocade box in her hands as she watched her father and Long Ji go tit for tat. She couldn't help but feel bitter in her heart. Not long ago, Nian Bing had been useless in her eyes. Now, he had become a talent that her father and Long Ji were fighting over. The contrast was too great. When it came to judging people, she was really too far behind. Nian Bing, oh Nian Bing, I really don't know if I should hate you or… Xueji shook his head helplessly and said, forget it. Actually, I didn't have much hope in coming here this time. Even if you didn't stop him, I'm afraid that Nian Bing wouldn't go to my little temple. I was wrong in the past to let him chop firewood in the Cool Breeze restaurant. This time, I'm here to apologize to him. Long Ji said with some doubt, just to apologize? Big brother, you also know that our Magicians Guild is getting worse and worse. It wasn't easy for us to get such a talent. I also have no other choice. Xueji smiled indifferently and said, enough, brother. Don't you know your big brother's character? I just want to see him and then I'll leave. Even if I can't use him, we can at least be friends. Long Ji's face turned red. Indeed, he was too nervous about Nian Bing. He hurriedly made way and said, Big brother, I'll take you there. He's in the library. On the third floor of the library, Nian Bing sat on the ground, concentrating on reading the information on magic arrays in his hand. As long as he had the book, he wouldn't think about anything else. Although there were fewer books on the third floor, the knowledge they contained was more extensive and profound. It wasn't something that could be completely understood in a day or two. He had long developed a strong interest in magic arrays. If he didn't study it thoroughly, he wouldn't give up. Long Ling looked at Nian Bing in a daze. She found that he was most attractive when he was in a state of concentration. Although he never looked at her when he was reading, his handsome face had long been deeply engraved in her mind. Long Ling had always believed in fate. Born in a magician's family, she had been learning magic from her father since she was young. She didn't have much interest in it. She felt that this was her fate. Since it was her fate, she had to continue. Jiu was her senior and had always been pursuing her. Jiu was indeed very good to her. When Long Ling was young, she had always believed that this was fate's arrangement. When she grew up, she would definitely marry this senior who was older than her by 10 years. However, ever since Nian Bing appeared, her belief in fate had been shaken. When Nian Bing successfully created a magic scroll and revealed a confident smile on his face, Long Ling knew that she had been completely attracted by that inconspicuous smile. For the first time, her heart throbbed. It was an indescribable feeling. Every day, although she only looked at Nian Bing in silence, her heart was very satisfied. As long as she looked at him, she would forget everything. In the beginning, Long Ling was still a little afraid. She was afraid of this feeling in her heart. However, when she saw Nian Bing create a work of art, 9 Azure Divine Dragon Bing Yun, the fear in her heart suddenly disappeared. She clearly understood that she had fallen deeply in love with this man, this mysterious man. Even though he wasn't that powerful, every part of him was deeply attractive to her. If there was a flaw in him, it would be his indifferent attitude. Apart from magic and cooking, he didn't seem to care about anything else. Even if it was someone as beautiful and intelligent as Ro-Er, he was afraid that he couldn't avoid her. Footsteps sounded. Long Ling couldn't help but frown. She didn't want anyone to disturb her and Nian Bing. She stood up and carefully looked downstairs without making any noise. She just happened to see her father leading Xueji and his daughter up the stairs. Uncle Xue, silence, you're here? Xuejing looked at Long Ling strangely. Ling, you're also learning magic in the library? I remember you said 2 years ago that you've read all the books here. Long Ling's face turned red. Nian Bing's understanding of magic is unique. I'm learning from him. Long Ji's heart skipped a beat. He could clearly see this kind of childish attitude. He smiled and said, at the same time, I'm also taking care of Nian Bing. After all, he works so hard every day. How can he live without someone to take care of him? If it weren't for Ling reminding him every day, I'm afraid he wouldn't even have time to eat. Even I can't help but admire this child's focus. Xueji looked at Longji. Longji was also looking at him. It was obvious that Longji's eyes were filled with pride. Xueji shook his head helplessly. It was obvious that he was at a disadvantage emotionally. Nianbing was only a firewood chopper in the breeze fasting, but in the Sorcerer's Guild, he was a treasure. Longji didn't even try to avoid suspicion and sent his own daughter to serve him. The difference between the two was too great. He was really too much. If he had seen Nianbing's true ability earlier, this situation wouldn't have happened. Xueji and Xuejing walked to Nianbing's side. Although Nianbing was focused, there was no way he wouldn't notice the two people beside him. He looked up and saw Xueji and his daughter. A trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. He quickly stood up and said, "Mr. Xue, Miss Xuejing, why are you here?" Chapter 26. Xueji smiled faintly and said, "I only found out from little brother Ming that you are the successor of senior ghost chef. I'm ashamed. I actually let you chop firewood in the Cool Breeze restaurant." Nianbing thought to herself, "You don't seem to be younger than my master, but you actually call my master senior. How funny. Mr. Xue, you don't have to be so polite. I didn't reveal my identity, how can I blame you? There's no place to sit here, I'm really sorry." Xueji sighed lightly and said, "I've always prided myself on my ability to judge people, but this time I've made such a mistake. This time I'm here to apologize for my neglect of you in the Cool Breeze restaurant, as well as my daughter's mischief. My daughter was really mischievous at that time, to actually let you pretend to be her boyfriend. Speaking of which, with your talent, how can my daughter be worthy of you?" Nianbing still had a good impression of Xueji. "You flatter me, Mr. Xue is too polite." As long as Miss Xuejing doesn't blame Nianbing for hiding the enmity, Nianbing is satisfied. Xueji smiled and said, "You're both young people, there's no harm in interacting more in the future. In terms of culinary skills, even little brother Ming admits that he's inferior. I only have one daughter, Jing. In the future, she will be the successor of the Cool Breeze restaurant. If she can learn more about culinary skills from you, I can be assured to hand over the Cool Breeze restaurant to her." "Longji, you have a daughter, do you think I don't? My daughter is not inferior to your daughter in terms of looks, but it's a pity that my daughter's temper is really bad. This Nianbing not only has superb culinary skills, she's also not weak in magic, and seems to have a good character, father." Xuejing's pretty face blushed slightly. She looked at her father, then looked at Nianbing and shyly lowered her head. At this moment, she didn't look like a crazy girl at all. Extreme Xue scolded, "Why aren't you apologizing to Nianbing? You are really too much of a troublemaker." Xuejing looked at Nianbing again. She hesitated for a moment, but couldn't bring herself to apologize. Nianbing said, "You don't have to apologize. Miss Xuejing didn't do anything wrong. I just hope that you can change your temper. It's better for girls to be gentle." As he spoke, he looked at Long Ling. Among the three beauties of Ice Snow City, the one that left the deepest impression on Nianbing was undoubtedly the wise girl Long Ling. However, the one that left the most favorable impression on Nianbing was the gentle and lovely girl. Xuejing glared at Nianbing, but in front of her father, she didn't dare to say anything. Extreme Xue sighed in his heart. In terms of temperament, his daughter really couldn't compare to Long Ling. Taking the brocade box from Xuejing, Nianbing said, "It's just a small gift. Please accept it, Nianbing. Although I know that it's impossible for you to return to Clear Wind Fasting, I still hope that you can become a friend of Clear Wind Fasting." As she spoke, Xuejing handed the brocade box to Nianbing. Nianbing didn't take it. "Why is Mr. Xue so polite? I can't accept this gift. Clear Wind Fasting didn't do anything wrong. I have some relationship with Master Ming, so naturally, I'm a friend of Clear Wind Fasting." Extreme Xue smiled. As the saying goes, A treasured sword is a gift to a hero. This thing is an heirloom of the Xue family. My eldest brother inherited my father's title, but this thing is inherited by me. To me, it doesn't have much use, but I think that it will be of some help to you. Just accept it. It's a small token of my appreciation. Nian Bing shook her head. Hearing you say that, I can't accept it even more. Since this thing is Mr. Xue's heirloom, it should be inherited by Miss Xuejing. Extreme Xue smiled. Since you've already agreed to be a friend of clear wind fasting, you don't have to call me Mr. Xue. If you don't mind, you can call me Uncle. I won't force you, but don't you want to see what it is? Although the outside of this brocade box is wrapped in cloth, the inside is made of lead. That's why the aura of the item inside doesn't leak out. Long Ji knew that things weren't good. From Extreme Xue's words, there must be a treasure inside the brocade box. He was too late to act. He didn't think that Extreme Xue would value Nian Bing so much that he would even take out his family heirloom. Long Ji, on the other hand, had received a lot of scrolls from Nian Bing. It seemed that after they left, he would have to act as well. As expected, even though Nian Bing was mature, he was still very curious as a young man. He subconsciously looked at the brocade box in Xueji's hand. Xueji smiled and opened the buckle on the brocade box. The moment the box was opened, the entire room was filled with a green light. Even the flow of air in the room became stronger. That was the aura of wind elemental energy. The wind elemental energy in the room quickly gathered in the brocade box, causing the green light to become even stronger. The wind seemed to be gently moaning. The buzzing sound was so beautiful. Long Ji's entire body shook. As a wind element archmage, how could he not recognize it? His voice trembled. This is a wind chanting stone. According to legend, Aeolus used his powerful magic power to condense this wind chanting stone while he was moaning in pain. Only a wind chanting stone can emit such a strong wind element aura. Brother Xue, you really hid it from me. Extreme Xue smiled. Brother, if it was only a wind chanting stone, why wouldn't I give it to you? You know, I've always been generous. I won't keep these worldly possessions to myself if I don't need them. Silence and I both have fire element bodies, so we mainly use fire. Therefore, we don't need it. However, the reason why I didn't give it to you, and didn't even show it to you, is because it's not just a wind-chanting stone. It's a blade that can display extreme speed. The blade that previously held the wind-chanting stone. The blade's name is Proud Heaven. It also has a title, The Soft Chanting of the Wind of Freedom. Finally, the long brocade box was completely opened. Maybe it was because it had been sealed for too long, but the wind element surged wildly. The entire library was dyed green. It was a blade, 1 foot 7 inches long and 3 inches wide. The blade's shape was very strange. It didn't tilt up like a normal blade, but the perfect curve of the blade was displayed. It was a blade, but the blade was extremely thin. Even at its thickest point, it was less than 1/7 of an inch thick. At the blade's edge, there were neat spirals that extended from the bottom to the tip. The blade's biggest feature was that it didn't have a guard. The blade directly extended down to the hilt. The hilt was also strange. There were 4 deep indentations on it, clearly for the fingers. Above the indentations of the index finger and middle finger, there was a vertical indentation, which was perfect for holding the blade. At the end of the hilt, there was a dark green gem protruding outwards. The protruding part was round. The entire blade emitted a strong green light, but as time passed, the green light continued to recede. The brilliance of the blade was so beautiful. Nian Bing murmured, "The soft chanting of the wind of freedom, Proud Heaven blade, it really is a good blade." Xueji seemed to have already expected his surprise. He smiled and explained, "The wind-chanting stone is indeed the most precious part of this blade, but at the same time, the blade itself is also of the highest quality. It was made from wind-green gold, which is why it could be combined with the wind-chanting stone to form this Proud Heaven blade. The proud heaven blade has a soul. Although you are not a wind element magician, as long as you use your strength, you can activate the wind element in the blade itself and form a normal wind blade. Although it is not much of a threat to high-level warriors, it is very difficult for normal warriors to block it. You are a magician. As long as you have time to block it, it is enough for you to chant the incantation. Of course, this is only the supporting effect of the proud heaven blade. The most important thing is that it can increase the speed of your blade when you use that amazing blade technique. If you have it when you make that 9 Azure Dragon Bing Yun invisibility, you can save at least half the time. Since you don't have your master's Jing Yang blade, this proud heaven blade is also very suitable for you. I dare say that in terms of quality, the proud heaven blade is not below Jing Yang blade. It might even be better. Long Ji moved to Xueji's side and looked at the dark green gem. He sighed and said, "What a pity, what a pity! This wind-chanting stone has already completely fused with the metal of the blade. Unless it fuses with the blade's soul, it will not be able to display the characteristics of the wind-chanting stone. If I can have a magic staff made from wind-chanting stone, maybe I can also become a god-descending master within 20 years. Big brother, luckily you didn't show it to me. Otherwise, I'm afraid I will really find a way to dig out this wind-chanting stone and make it into a magic staff." Xueji smiled and said, Don't even talk about the sturdiness of the wind-green gold. Even if you use a magic of level 10 and above, you won't be able to break it. Even if you really took out the wind-chanting stone, I'm afraid you won't be able to find a suitable material to make it into a magic staff. Although the wind-green gold is good, its sharpness is too strong and is only suitable to be used as a weapon. Long Ji smiled bitterly. If it is really a magic staff made from wind-chanting stone, then it should be a divine weapon. Forget it, forget it. Looks like I don't have such luck. It's a pity that Nian Bing is not a wind elemental magician. Otherwise, with a chef's familiarity with knives, he will definitely be able to display the power of the wind-chanting stone. He will be able to display the power of a magic staff. To be honest, giving this knife to Nian Bing is a little unfair. Xueji smiled and said, "There's nothing unfair about it. Although Nian Bing's magic is not wind elemental, he should be very familiar with the elements of magic. He should be able to display some of its power. Furthermore, I gave this knife to him to make it into a kitchen knife, not a magic staff. Nian Bing, aren't you going to give it a try?" It would be a lie to say that the proud heaven knife was not attractive to Nian Bing. The value of this knife was definitely above the righteous Yang knife without the divine fire stone. It was definitely not inferior to the morning dew. Just the quality of the knife was enough to move Nian Bing's heart. Walking to Xueji's side, he reached his hand into the box. Before he even touched the knife, the strong wind elemental energy gave him a refreshing feeling. Holding the knife in the hollow of the handle, he felt it fit perfectly with his hand. The knife and the brocade box separated. Nian Bing suddenly felt that his hand seemed to be wrapped by a ball of wind. His wrist trembled slightly, and the knife suddenly turned into a realistic afterimage. So fast that faint gust of wind actually completely merged with his hand as his wrist trembled. The original 36 blades had actually turned into 49 blade. Indeed, what Polar Snow had said was right. This blade could definitely increase his speed. All this time, Nian Bing had thought that his hand's speed had already reached the limit. However, if he could obtain this proud heaven knife, his limit would definitely be broken. As long as he coordinated well, it was completely possible to double his speed. The ice and fire elemental energy in his body seemed to have spun a little faster under the influence of the wind elemental energy. However, there was no rejection. After all, whether it was ice or fire, there was no counter to wind. With the proud heaven knife, even with Xueji's eyesight, he could not clearly see the number of knife shadows. He said with satisfaction, "Not bad, right? It really suits you. As an outstanding chef, How could you not have a good knife to match you? You are a magic chef. This proud heaven knife is the most suitable for you. I hope that the gentle hymn of the wind of freedom will be more comfortable in your hand. Nian Bing nodded and said, Good knife, it really is a good knife. However, I can't accept it. As he said that, he put the gentle hymn of the wind of freedom back into the lead box. Xueji frowned and said, Don't you think it suits you? Why don't you want it? Nian Bing said, Uncle, Nian Bing appreciates your kindness. However, this knife is really too precious. Moreover, it is Uncle's family heirloom. Its value is hard to estimate. I really can't accept it. Xueji smiled. You are not greedy in the face of a treasure. Good, you are indeed the successor of the ghost chef. Very well, I won't give you this knife. Since it is useless to keep it, how about I sell it to you? Sell? Hearing this word, Nian Bing could not help but feel a rush of excitement. He really liked this treasure that could increase his hand speed. He asked tentatively, How much do you want to sell it for? Of course, he knew that treasures of this level had no price. Xueji smiled and said, That depends on who you sell it to. How about this, 100,000 purple gold coins, and you personally come to our Cool Breeze restaurant to be our chef for a month. I will sell this gentle hymn of the wind of freedom to you. 100,000 purple gold coins? Xuejing, Nian Bing, Long Ling and Long Ji could not help but exclaim at the same time. Long Ji smiled bitterly and said, Even if I sold my magician's guild, I am afraid it would only be worth that much. One must know that purple gold coins were rarely used. Normally, gold coins were used as currency. 100,000 purple gold coins was a total of 1 million gold coins. Xueji smiled and said, What? Do you think it is expensive? Of course, if Nian Bing is willing to stay at the Cool Breeze restaurant for 5 years, she can also get this knife. A scheme, this was definitely a scheme. Long Ji looked at Xueji, who had an unfathomable expression on his face, and felt a wave of dissatisfaction in his heart. When he had suggested giving the knife to Nian Bing, he had already calculated that Nian Bing would not accept it. What an old fox! That's right, just the Windham stone alone is worth 100,000 purple gold coins. Even if Nian Bing works for you for 5 years, it will be completely worth it. However, the guild needs Nian Bing. Brother Xue, don't make things difficult for your brother. Xueji smiled and said, Brother Long, don't misunderstand. I am asking her to help me. Actually, she doesn't have to stay at my place all day. You should know that Ming Yuan only helps out occasionally. If Nian Bing is willing to come to my place, she will be treated the same as Ming Yuan. She will only need to go there at night. The rest of the time, she can stay at your guild. This condition is not too harsh. 5 years is actually not that long. When he proposed the price, Xueji had already thought that Nian Bing would not have 100,000 purple gold coins to buy the knife. Long Ji was speechless. If he was Nian Bing, he would definitely choose these 5 years. After all, the arrival of a peerless treasure knife was a great opportunity. If it was anyone else, Xueji would definitely not pay such a high price. Unfortunately, he was not Nian Bing. That's right, Nian Bing really liked the Windham of Freedom. However, he already had the Morning Dew dagger, which was not below the proud Heaven Blade. The ice attribute Morning Dew was more suitable for Nian Bing. Furthermore, he had the righteous Yang Blade, which could possibly reach the same level as the Morning Dew. His desire for the proud Heaven Blade was not that strong. Furthermore, he had his own capital. Nian Bing opened her mouth and smiled calmly, saying, I want this knife. Its price is much higher than what Uncle said. I know that Uncle wants to give me a chance. If I don't accept it, I am not worthy of being your friend. Xueji was overjoyed. Good. That means you agree to work at my place for 5 years. Don't worry, I will pay you the same salary. As long as you are here, Clear Wind Fasting will definitely prosper. In the future, no matter when, even after the 5-year agreement, as long as you are tired of working outside, Clear Wind Fasting will always be your home. You can retire here. Since I said this, whether I am in clear wind fasting or in charge of clear wind fasting in the future, I will fulfill this promise. Nian Bing smiled faintly, saying, Uncle, I think you have misunderstood. I do want this knife, but it is not what you are thinking of. I can work for clear wind fasting for a month, and at the same time, I will provide 100,000 purple gold coins. That is the first condition you mentioned earlier. Xueji was stunned, saying, You have 100,000 purple gold coins? Did Senior Ghost Chef leave it to you? Nian Bing shook her head, saying, No, that's not it. Although Master left me a lot of property, as a man, I will never use other people's money to buy what I want. I will use my own ability to get this wind of freedom. Although I don't have 100,000 purple gold coins now, if I can provide an item of equal value in exchange, it should be possible. The situation had already gone beyond Xueji's previous calculations. He could not help but frown, saying, What do you want to use in exchange? Nian Bing smiled, saying, Uncle, I think you might have some understanding of magic. Precious magic scrolls have always been worth a lot. If it is an 11th grade magic scroll second only to the God's Descent technique, would it be worth 100,000 purple gold coins? Nodding, Xueji said, An 11th grade magic scroll would probably be worth more than that. But, as far as I know, even the Snow Goddess Priestess could not create a magic scroll above the 10th grade. Don't tell me you have one? Nian Bing shook her head, saying, No, I don't. However, I can make scrolls. Although I haven't reached level 11 yet, the scrolls I make will have the same value as the scrolls I make. I am willing to provide you with 10 scrolls. 10 scrolls that I am most proud of within 3 months. I think their value should be enough to match at least 2 11th grade scrolls. This can be considered as me returning the favor. Xueji said doubtfully, Nian Bing, it's not that I don't trust you, but, looking at you, you are only a great magician. As far as I know, great magicians can only create 4th grade scrolls, and the success rate is very low. With a difference of 7 grades, the value of the scrolls is, Nian Bing interrupted Xueji's words with a smile. Yes, I am a great magician, but I can create 6th grade scrolls. Moreover, the reason why I am confident that my scrolls are worth that price is because they have certain characteristics. The power they can unleash will definitely surprise you. Most importantly, these scrolls cannot be created by others, not even the Snow Goddess Priestess, who is known as the most powerful magician in the world. Unless I tell you the method of creating these scrolls, otherwise, no one will be able to reach my level of creation. In order to obtain the proud Heaven Blade, Nian Bing could no longer hide the secret she had just learned. Xueji smiled. Nian Bing, I believe you. From the fact that Long Ji values you so much, I can see that you have extraordinary achievements in the world of magicians. However, you have neglected the most important point. Our Xue clan uses martial arts to protect ourselves. Even if we have your powerful magic scrolls, they are useless to us. Don't tell me you expect me to sell them for money? If you think that your scrolls are worth that price, why don't you sell them yourself? Nian Bing calmly replied, Because I don't want outsiders to know the secret of these scrolls, so I don't want to sell them. Instead, I want to use them to exchange for the proud Heaven Blade. Since I dared to propose such an exchange, I will naturally consider everything carefully. The scrolls that I made have a special characteristic, which is that they can be used by anyone. Even a child who has just started to understand things will be able to unleash the power of these scrolls as long as I teach them how to use them. What? Xueji and Longji both cried out in surprise. In their eyes, this was impossible. Nian Bing smiled slightly and took out a scroll from his chest. This scroll was made from the lowest grade of white scroll. He handed the scroll to Xuejing and smiled. Let's do an experiment. Facts often prove everything. Miss Xuejing, please do as I say and open the scroll to the ceiling. Xuejing was taken aback. How do I do it? Nian Bing said. You just need to open the scroll like you would an art scroll. Make the scroll face up, and it'll be fine. Xuejing's eyes flashed with surprise, and she slowly opened the scroll according to Nian Bing's instructions. A strange scene appeared. When the scroll was fully opened, the entire scroll suddenly turned into a white mist. With a "piu" sound, dozens of ice blades suddenly appeared and turned into dozens of cold lights that directly stabbed into the roof. Just when everyone was still immersed in surprise, the dozens of ice blades on the roof suddenly turned into a mist of ice at the same time. It was a large piece of ice that had condensed on the roof. Although Long Ji had heard from Xuejing that Nian Bing could make fusion scrolls, seeing it for the first time, he couldn't help but open his mouth in surprise. More importantly, this scroll was opened by Xuejing, who didn't know magic at all. Just this alone was enough to double the value of this scroll. If this scroll was sold to the royal family and ministers of various empires, the sales would definitely be very good. Who wouldn't want to have something that could save their lives? Nian Bing's gaze turned to the somewhat dazed Xueji, and she smiled. Uncle, you've already seen my scroll. If you have 10 of these scrolls by your side, it'll be very effective in protecting you and Miss Xuejing's life. Of course, you can rest assured that the scrolls I'll provide you will definitely be of the 6th and 6th level. I'll tell you what the 2 spells in each scroll are. When you encounter danger, you only need to open the scroll, and it'll naturally protect you. Xueji shook his head with a bitter smile, and said, Nian Bing, although I don't know how difficult it is to do this, but even Brother Long is so surprised, it can be seen that this scroll is very valuable. 10 6th and 6th level scrolls can easily be sold for 100,000 purple coins. However, you should know that this isn't what I want. I really hope that you can come to the clear wind fasting to help me. Nian Bing looked at the desire in Xueji's eyes and smiled faintly. Although Aotian is valuable, to me, the value of freedom is even higher. I can't give up my freedom just to obtain the wind of freedom. 5 years is really too long for me. In fact, if it weren't for some special reasons, I would have left Ice Snow City long ago. My master once told me that 8 years of cooking training, 8 years of cooking comprehension. Only by traveling the entire continent can I achieve the word comprehension. I hope you can understand my difficulties. If you're not willing to exchange, then I won't force you. I'll still be a friend of the clear wind fasting. Xueji sighed and said, Words spoken are like spilled water. Since I, Xueji, have already stated my conditions, I won't go back on my words. We'll do as you say. After you're done with the scrolls, teach them to my daughter. I think that in the future, these 10 scrolls will be Jing Er's dowry. When do you plan to start working at the clear wind fasting? Although it's only a month, I still want to make good use of it. I believe that you won't reject some of my arrangements. Nian Bing smiled confidently and said, If you want me to spar with other chefs, then I'm more than happy to do so. Why would I reject? However, I hope that the chefs you find won't be too bad. Otherwise, it'll be hard for me to be interested. From tomorrow onwards, I'll report to the clear wind fasting on time every evening. Xueji nodded, and handed the brocade box in his hands to Nian Bing, and said, Right now, although it's not completely yours, I can give it to you to use. I trust in your character. To be honest, Nian Bing, it's really easy to talk to you. There are many things that don't need to be said. I finally understand why our Ice Snow City's wise lady lost to you. Silence. Let's go. Xuejing was obviously very happy. She didn't seem to be dissatisfied that the treasured saber that was supposed to be hers had fallen into Nian Bing's hands. Her beautiful eyes moved, and she rolled her eyes at Nian Bing and said, Then we'll see each other tomorrow. When the time comes, I'll find you a suitable set of clothes to wear. Xueji and Xuejing left, carrying the heavy brocade box in their hand. Nian Bing was also very happy. Although the proud heaven saber wasn't as important as the morning dew, he needed to hide the aura of the morning dew. It was always a pity that he didn't have a suitable saber. Proud heaven's arrival at this time made up for this regret. With proud heaven in hand, Nian Bing firmly believed that his saber techniques would definitely improve. He could now start practicing the saber techniques that he didn't dare to try before. Long Ji's eyes flashed as he looked at Nian Bing. He sighed and said, "To be honest, I was really afraid that you would agree to the 5-year agreement. However, I didn't have the right to ask you to reject. Nian Bing, I realize that I can't see through you anymore. What on earth is your brain made of? Ever since you came, you have explored the mysteries of magic one by one. I know that you will leave Ice Snow City one day. I won't stop you. I only hope that when you leave, you will bid farewell to me. Always remember that you are a member of the Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Guild. That is enough." Nian Bing nodded and said, "President, don't worry. Since I have joined the guild, I am a member of the guild. You have helped me so much, I will definitely repay you. I want to continue reading. Please continue with your work." Long Ji said, "Then I won't disturb you. If you need anything, just tell Ling. I will do my best to satisfy your needs." After he finished speaking, he pulled Long Ling downstairs. Nian Bing picked up the book that he had been reading earlier. It was as if nothing had happened. He placed the brocade box beside him and continued to study. The more he studied magic arrays, the more he realized that there were profound mysteries behind them. Those were the things that he needed the most. Long Ling followed her father out of the library. Long Ji looked around and saw that there was no one around. He whispered, "Ling, I want to discuss something with you." Long Ling stared blankly and said, "Father, if you have something to say, just say it. As long as Ling can do it." Long Ji sighed softly and said, "I'm finding more and more that this Nian Bing isn't simple. He's truly brought me too many surprises. This kind of talent is exactly what our guild needs. If he can represent our guild in the Triennial 5 Great Empire's new magician competition, it'll definitely change the status of our Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Guild in the continent. Unfortunately, I am afraid that he won't be willing to stay until then. Originally, I wanted you to participate, but Nian Bing's appearance made me change my mind." Long Ling frowned and said, "Father, although we can participate in the new magician competition, we are always affiliated with the Ice God Tower. With the successor of the Ice God Tower, we can't do anything." Chapter 27. Long Ji shook his head and said, "No, it's not the same. The new magician tournament has very strict requirements. The contestants must be under the age of 25. Even the contestants sent by the Ice God Tower can't win every time. After all, it's hard for young magicians to have great strength. However, Nian Bing is different. There's still a year before the magician tournament begins. With his current situation, with the help of the Union's magic materials, who knows how much he can improve? It's very likely that he'll soar to the sky. If he can win, our Union will be able to hold our heads high in the Empire. If the Ice God Tower wants to suppress us again, it won't be that easy." Long Ling said doubtfully, "You should be saying this to Nian Bing. What's the use of telling me?" Long Ji smiled and said, "Of course it's useful. Ling, ever since your mother passed away, it's always been your father who's taken care of you. You're the treasure in your father's heart. Frankly speaking, your father attaches great importance to the Union, but you're definitely an existence equal to the Union. I'm going to ask you a question now. You have to answer me honestly. Do you like Nian Bing?" Long Ling didn't think that her father would ask such a question. Her face immediately turned red. She shyly lowered her head and played with her clothes. She couldn't say anything. Long Ji smiled and said, "What? You're not going to say anything? Could it be that a young talent like Nian Bing can't attract my daughter? My precious daughter, your conditions can't be too high. Think about it, if you can marry Nian Bing, it'll be convenient for you to eat in the future." "It's not like that, father." Long Ling lowered her head and stammered, "Father, Nian Bing is indeed very outstanding. However, we've only known each other for such a short time. How can I say whether I like him or not? Don't force Ling." Long Ji laughed and said, All right, I won't force you. Then I'll go talk to Luo Ro and see if she's interested in Nianbing. Don't. Long Ling anxiously raised her head and looked at her father. Father, don't. I. Long Ji looked at his daughter with a smile that was not a smile and said, What, is Ling going to tell the truth? Long Ling said angrily, Dad, you're so bad. Yes, I admit that I have a good impression of Nianbing. But as you can see, he doesn't seem to care about anything other than magic and cooking. Long Ji heaved a sigh of relief and said, It's fine as long as you like him. Everything else is fine. Although her father was somewhat utilitarian, he would never let his daughter marry someone she didn't love. Ling remember your father's words. You have to fight for your own happiness. If you really like Nianbing, don't give up. You have to act early. As long as you can capture his heart, all problems will be solved. Do you understand what I mean? Long Ling lowered her head again. But, father, I am a girl after all. Don't tell me you want me to reveal my feelings to him? Long Ji shook his head and said with a smile, Of course not. It's enough to subtly influence him. After all, you are together every day. I think, my daughter is so beautiful, Nianbing is not a fool. It's impossible for him not to notice. However, when necessary, you can also give him some hints. I can see that Xuejing also has a good impression of Nianbing. If that old fox Xueji adds fuel to the fire, things will be difficult to say. You don't want to give your beloved to a good friend, do you? Long Ling looked at her father blankly. I don't know. Long Ji smiled bitterly and said, Ai, forget it. The so-called scheming is too clever. I am also a bit too utilitarian. You young people's matters are all about fate. Do as you wish. However, Father hopes that you can persuade Nianbing to represent our union in the new magician convention in a year's time. Other things can be discussed in the future. Long Ling nodded and said, Father, I will try my best. However, I can't promise you anything now because I don't know what Nianbing is thinking. A year is still a long time. I will definitely work hard. I also hope that the union situation will improve. Then I will go first. Long Ji nodded and said, Go. Come to my place tonight and bring the white scroll you just bought. Nianbing needs it. Nianbing flipped through the magic book in his hand. It was already late at night. Long Ling was sitting not far from him meditating. This book that introduced all kinds of profound magic arrays finally turned to the last page. Nianbing was a bit disappointed. Although the magic arrays recorded in these magic books were not bad, they were worse than what he had imagined. There was no knowledge that he wanted to obtain the most. Sighing, just as he was about to close the book, he suddenly discovered that on the last page of the magic book, there was a special mark. It was clearly a magic symbol, one of the symbols used to engrave magic arrays. This symbol represented the meaning of concealment. Nianbing's heart moved. He condensed his magic power and carefully drew on the symbol according to the order. A faint blue light flashed. When he finished the last stroke, the last page of the magic book was suddenly dyed blue. It was a blue that belonged to ice. The handwriting on the page began to change. The original symbols and words had completely changed. Magic array used to connect heaven and earth. It balances all kinds of magic elements between heaven and earth so that it can be better used by magicians. However, as a magician, close combat is always at a disadvantage. When encountering a strong martial artist, it is very difficult to win in a one-on-one situation. In response to this situation, the magic array can undergo a special change and form a special array. This array can be engraved on the scroll to assist the original magic on the scroll. This array can have a special effect. This array is called trigger. The so-called trigger refers to when the holder of the magic scroll encounters a certain degree of attack. The scroll will automatically explode to protect its owner. The degree of attack can be set in the trigger array. The array is as follows, please study it yourself. A special reminder. This magic array can only be added when the magic scroll has been completed. Once the addition fails, the scroll will be automatically destroyed. Please use it with caution. Seeing this, Nian Bing's heart suddenly became lively. He finally understood why once a magician reached the level of a sorcerer, he was no longer afraid of duels with martial artists. It was not because the magician's ability was strong enough, but because of the existence of this trigger array. Once an enemy launched a sneak attack on a magician, then as long as the magician had this special scroll on him, it would naturally resolve the crisis at that time and give the magician a certain amount of time to chant the spell. Good stuff, really good stuff. Fortunately, he had noticed this point. If not, if he had let it go, this wonderful magic array would have slipped away. Thinking of this, Nian Bing immediately immersed himself in studying. This kind of special magic array was very difficult to engrave. Not only did it require high control of magic, at the same time, it also required a huge amount of magic power as support. Engraving such a trigger array was actually more difficult than drawing a level 6 magic scroll. In fact, what Nian Bing did not know was that the actual use of this kind of magic array was not widespread. Although there were records in the Magicians' Guild of each empire, because this kind of magic array was extremely difficult to create and the success rate was frighteningly low, the magic scroll itself was extremely precious. Who would be willing to use a high-level scroll to do this kind of trigger array experiment? After all, that would be too wasteful. Therefore, even if it was created, it could only be used on some low-level magic, and had long been abandoned by the majority of magicians. The main reason why a sorcerer could fight against a martial artist was because of the support from the Magicians' Guild. Magicians who had reached the level of a sorcerer would often carry many magic items. This was necessary for the Magicians' Guild to be equipped with them in order to protect high-level magicians. Among them, magic items used for warning had always been the most popular. Of course, the price was also the most expensive. With this kind of magic item, a magician would be able to foresee the arrival of danger in advance and be prepared to deal with it. Even if the strength of the sneak attack was strong, magicians who had reached the level of a sorcerer and above would often carry powerful magic scrolls with them to protect themselves. Then, they would use the time gained by the magic scrolls to chant powerful spells. This was the real reason why they could fight against a martial artist. Of course, under normal circumstances, unless it was necessary, a magician would rarely act alone. They would be accompanied by a martial artist companion. This was the best way to protect their safety. If they had to act alone, unless they were very conceited magicians, they would generally choose to dress casually to hide their identity. Of course, this kind of behavior was done in secret. Otherwise, they would inevitably be made fun of by their peers. Nian Bing's research was not directly related to the method of drawing the magic array, but directly studied the principle of the trigger array. Through her own familiarity with the various magic array symbols, she carefully looked for the principle of the trigger array. As long as she understood the principle, she would not have to rely on memorizing the array at all. She would be able to use it more flexibly and even add her own things into it. Concentrating on research was often the most time-consuming. When Nian Bing had basically figured it out, the sky outside was already bright. The feeling of fatigue overwhelmed her whole body, but the new results of her research made Nian Bing extremely happy. Eat something. Long Ling's voice awakened Nian Bing, who was immersed in joy. Turning her head, she saw Long Ling standing beside her with a tray. She squatted down and carefully placed the tray on the ground. On the tray were 2 steamed buns, a plate of braised meat and a bowl of porridge. Long Ling said somewhat reproachfully, "Another night without sleep. Could it be that this magic information is really so attractive to you?" Nian Bing was just about to reach out to grab the steamed bun when Long Ling slapped his hand away. "Your hands are dirty. Wipe your hands and face first before eating." As she said that, she handed a warm and soft towel to Nian Bing. The towel was very moist and very comfortable to hold in the hand. It exuded a faint fragrance. Nian Bing looked at Long Ling and suddenly felt very warm. This feeling was indescribable with words. Ling thank you. These days, you have always been taking care of me. Long Ling smiled and said, we are friends. Moreover, the more successful your research is, the more beneficial it is for our union. Nianbing, the method you taught me to concentrate is really useful. I can clearly feel that my control of magic has improved recently. Thank you. Nianbing smiled and said, what are you thanking me for? That is all your own effort. Wiping his face and hands with the towel, Nianbing immediately felt much better. After not sleeping for a night, her stomach was already hungry. She didn't feel it before, but now that her mind was relaxed, her stomach almost growled. She wolfed down the food and swept the tray clean. Although it wasn't delicious, it was especially fragrant and sweet at this time. Eat slowly, don't choke. Actually, it's not good for you to eat like this. There is no pattern at all. Nianbing, you need to rest more. There is plenty of time, why are you in such a hurry? Nianbing smiled and said, how can I not be in a hurry? After I finish learning everything and fulfill my promise with Uncle Shueji, I will leave here. Staying in one place for too long is not good for me. My dream is to travel the world. As the saying goes, it is better to travel 10,000 miles than to read 10,000 books. My vision is too narrow now. Long Ling's heart trembled. Nianbing, must you leave? Ice Snow City is actually. Nianbing lowered her head and didn't look at Long Ling's moving eyes. She nodded and said firmly, I must leave. When Master passed away, I promised him that I would become the best chef. After 8 years of learning how to cook, I have only just taken the first step. Linger, thank you for always caring for me, but a man's ambition is to travel the world. Perhaps one day I will come back when I am tired. Long Ling blurted out, then I will wait for you to come back. Nianbing's body trembled and she looked up at Long Ling. From her gentle eyes, Nianbing saw many things. Linger, don't be like this, okay? I don't know when I will come back, and if I can come back. I understand your intentions, but I cannot delay your life. Just treat me as a passerby in your life. With your temperament, you will definitely find someone more suitable for you. Long Ling bit her lip and slowly stood up with the tray. She said in a low voice, I understand, I am not good enough for you. No. Nianbing stood up and grabbed Long Ling's shoulders with both hands. I'm the one who's not good enough for you. Ling if you can't move my heart, then I'll have to have a heart of stone. However, I can't have any attachments right now. I still have many things to do. No one knows what will happen in the future, right? Right now, I don't want to talk about feelings at all. That is too extravagant for me. Long Ling felt the heat in Nianbing's hands. Could it be that you only have cooking and magic in your heart? Nianbing nodded and said, that's right. In my heart, there is only cooking and magic. Everything else can be filtered. I need to focus my mind in order to achieve anything. Long Ling sighed softly and held back her tears. She did not blame Nianbing. After all, everyone's pursuit was different. A girl's greatest pursuit in life was undoubtedly to find a good home. However, men were not the same. Some people were content with a small corner, while others were destined to be extraordinary. Nianbing was obviously the latter. He had too many dreams and pursuits. After Long Ling left, Nianbing did not feel good in his heart. He looked at the surrounding bookshelves with some annoyance. Rejecting a gentle and beautiful girl was not a comfortable thing to do. Just when his heart was in a mess, a look of despair suddenly flashed in his mind. Nianbing's body shook violently and he cried out, Mother, Mother, I was wrong. I shouldn't be worried about these things. The Ice God Tower is my goal. That look of despair was deeply engraved in his memory. That was his mother's last look. Nianbing took a deep breath and all kinds of chaotic thoughts in his heart disappeared. He sat cross-legged and began to meditate. From morning to noon and then from noon to night, after an entire day of cultivation, Nianbing woke up from his meditation. The magic of the same origin of ice and fire had become more condensed. Although the speed of improvement was very slow, the circulation of the magic was still stable. The ingenious vortexes combined organically, and their auras were connected without any conflict. This was the power of the same origin of ice and fire. He looked up at the sky outside. At this time, the sky was gradually darkening, and the magic lamp in the library was about to be turned on. Nian Bing took out a double-tier, 4 magic scroll from his bosom. This scroll was the work he was most proud of so far. He slowly opened the scroll and poured blue magic into it. Without any hesitation, the light blue light intertwined on the scroll. The blue light constantly flickered, and every line was so wonderful. There was no pause, and it intertwined with the original magic array of the scroll. The perfect work was gradually completed in Nian Bing's hands. Ling Nian Bing clearly knew that the scroll in his hand already had the ability to trigger. After a night of research and a day of meditation, he had really mastered this skill. However, Nian Bing was very clear that his success was very lucky. As the annotation said, this kind of magic array was very difficult to complete. Even if he had already figured out its principle, there were still a few times where he almost failed. Standing up, he carefully put the scroll in his bosom. Picking up the lead box from the ground, he simply tidied up his appearance. Nian Bing quietly left the library. Other than delivering lunch to himself at noon, Long Ling didn't appear. Nian Bing knew that although she didn't say it, he had already deeply hurt her heart. It was good that she didn't see him, lest he fell too deep. Just as he walked out of the Magician's Union, a carriage came in front of Nian Bing. Nian Bing had seen the coachman before. It was the old coachman when he and Xuejing went to Luo Ro's house to attend the banquet. Xuejing poked her head out of the carriage. "Chef, get in the carriage. Father asked me to pick you up. I've been waiting for you for half an hour. You're really slow." Nian Bing secretly smiled bitterly in his heart. It was really one wave after another. Long Ling already understood his feelings, but this crazy woman wasn't so easy to deal with. He hoped that she would hate him more. It was a pity that the Yanfeng she liked was Yanjuhua. Otherwise, he could play matchmaker and save Xuejing from paying attention to him. "Thank you for troubling Miss Xuejing to personally pick me up. This Nian Bing really doesn't dare to accept." Although he said so, he still stepped on the carriage. Xuejing sat beside Nian Bing, her face showing a sweet smile. "I don't dare. When did you become so polite? Isn't it time for you to bully me?" Nian Bing smiled bitterly. "Haven't I already explained it clearly? Miss Xuejing, can you let me go? There's no hatred between us." Xuejing smiled and said, "I'll let you go. Then I'll have to think about it. However, we'll have to change the way we address each other. I've already called you by your name, and you call my father uncle. In the future, you can call me Jing or Silence. We can be considered friends. You won't refuse such a small request, right? I see that when you call Ling it's very intimate." Nian Bing didn't want to be entangled and hurriedly said, "Okay, I'll agree. Silence, in the future, you don't have to send a carriage to pick me up. I'll walk there myself. That way I can stretch my muscles." Xuejing giggled and said, "Stretching my muscles and bones? You'll have time to stretch your muscles tonight." As soon as the words left her mouth, she immediately felt that it was inappropriate and blushed. Nian Bing pretended not to understand. "Stretch my muscles? Tonight, Uncle won't give me any difficult problems, right?" Xuejing stuck out her cute little tongue. "There won't be any difficult problems. Father just invited the owner of De Qing Pavilion across the street to be a guest. He also sent a challenge to them." Nian Bing's eyes lit up. "Challenge the head chef of De Qing Pavilion? Good, that's exactly what I was hoping for." A strong fighting spirit surged from Nian Bing's body. In the dim carriage, his eyes were like the cold stars in the night sky, shining with a confident light. He placed the box containing the proud heaven blade on his lap. "Today, I'll try this blade." Feeling the cold aura from Nian Bing's body, Xuejing's heart stirred. Such strong confidence. Originally, She thought that Nian Bing would make things difficult for him because of the challenge arranged by Polar Snow. She didn't expect that Nian Bing would agree so easily and even seemed very excited. Of course, she didn't understand the heart of a top expert in the culinary world. The feeling of having a difficult opponent was the most painful. Now that there was an opportunity, how could Nian Bing not be excited? He had chosen Ice Snow City as his first stop because he wanted to compare notes with the culinary experts of Qing Feng Zhai and Deqing Pavilion. You seem to be very confident in yourself. Xuejing looked at Nian Bing, her heart swaying. Nian Bing smiled. Don't tell me you don't have confidence in me? Does Deqing Pavilion's chef have any special skills? I think, to be able to compete with Qing Feng Zhai, his ability shouldn't be below Master Ming's. Xuejing nodded and said, of course, there's a reason why Deqing Pavilion can become the favorite place of high-ranking officials and dignitaries. It's not only because of their special services, but also because of the taste of their dishes. Their head chef is very young, probably in his 30s. I don't know who his master is. Uncle Ming once competed with him, but it ended in a draw. That guy seems to be good at cooking all kinds of meat dishes. I have to admit that his dishes are better than Uncle Ming's in terms of color and fragrance. It's just that the taste is a bit more heavy. Nian Bing nodded and said, based on what you've said, that head chef must have chosen the path of extravagance. Extravagant dishes are mainly about color and fragrance. Alright, I'll compete with him today and see whose dish is more extravagant. Jing have you seen Yan Feng recently? Xuejing was stunned. She suddenly realized that ever since she hated Nian Bing, the name Yan Feng had never appeared in her mind. Him? I haven't seen him recently. I'm very curious. Why did he treat you as a friend when you met for the first time that day? Judging from his personality, he doesn't seem to be that easy to get close to. Nian Bing thought of Yan Feng's expression when he looked at her and felt a chill in her heart. She smiled bitterly. Jing I'll give you a suggestion. You'd better give up on him. You won't have anything to do with him. Xuejing asked curiously, why do you say that? Are you jealous that I like him? Jealous? Nian Bing smiled. I don't think that word has ever appeared in my mind. I'm doing this for your own good. Gossiping behind people's backs isn't my style. You'll understand in the future. Xuejing snorted. There's nothing that can't be said. If you don't say it clearly, then I can only take it that you're jealous. Nian Bing smiled and said, then I'll take it that I'm jealous. After all, you're so beautiful. Even if I'm jealous, it's only natural. When the carriage stopped at the entrance of the Cool Breeze restaurant, Nian Bing was surprised to find that the street was strangely quiet. He alighted from the carriage with Xuejing. He was surprised to find that there was not a single person on the busiest street of the Ice Snow City. Xuejing smiled and said, for today's competition, Father specially invited the city lord and a few people with status to be the judges. Deqing Xian and the Cool Breeze restaurant are temporarily closed. The streets have been blocked off by soldiers. Nian Bing was surprised. There's no need to make such a big fuss. The Cool Breeze restaurant and Deqing Xian's daily turnover should be quite a lot. To close for such a simple competition, aren't you afraid of losing money? Xuejing said, you don't understand. Regardless of whether we win or Deqing Xian wins, we will immediately suppress the other side and become the #1 restaurant in the entire Ice Snow City. How can the profits brought by this honor be compared to a single day's turnover? Deqing Xian has been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. Their boss had suggested to Father many times that he wanted to have such a competition, but he was rejected by Father. After all, the head chef of Deqing Xian is still young. Uncle Ming once said that within 3 years, he will definitely surpass him. Therefore, in order to protect the reputation of the Cool Breeze restaurant, Father has never accepted the challenge. This is also the reason why the Cool Breeze restaurant has always been suppressed by Deqing Xian. Today is the day for us to hold our heads high. Nian Bing, you have to do your best. Nian Bing nodded and said, I'll do my best. I knew it. This Wind of Freedom sword is not so easy to obtain. Alright, let's go in. The moment they entered the Cool Breeze restaurant, Nian Bing immediately felt a heavy atmosphere. On both sides of the passageway, there were not only servants of the Cool Breeze restaurant, but also a few strangers in ordinary clothes. At a glance, these people were not eye-catching. However, with Nian Bing's spiritual power, she could clearly sense that these people were not as ordinary as they appeared. Each and every one of them had a hidden essence, and they were all experts in martial arts. The main hall of the Cool Breeze restaurant was still the same as before. However, nearly 100 tables in the hall had been vacated. In the center of the hall, there was a row of long tables with empty chairs behind them. On both sides of the hall, there were piles of kitchen tools. On the left were some ordinary tools, while on the right there were some people setting them up. Xuejing said in a low voice, Look, the front is the judge's table. The left is where you operate, and the right is where the head chef of De Qingxian operates. They have already started setting up. If you have any requests, quickly state them now. I will immediately get someone to do it. Otherwise, it will be too late later. You don't have to worry about the various ingredients. As long as you can name it, I will be able to get it. Nian Bing nodded and leaned over to whisper into Xuejing's ear. Xuejing's face was filled with surprise. That's all? They are all very ordinary things. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, Beauty in the ordinary is true ability. Just do as I say. Don't worry, I know what to do. Xuejing nodded and said, Go change your clothes. Your clothes are on the bed in my room. I personally prepared them for you. After you change, just come back here and wait for the competition to begin. Nian Bing glanced at Xuejing and said, Going into your room again? Xuejing smiled and said, Don't tell me you're scared? I want to prepare something for you. Hurry up and go. After saying that, she floated away like a red cloud. Nian Bing looked at Xuejing's excited look and knew that the grudge between them had disappeared. But the disappearance of this grudge didn't seem to be too good. As he thought, he came to the back hall and walked with familiar ease to Xuejing's room. The door wasn't locked and the familiar fragrance once again appeared at the tip of his nose. Walking to the front of the bed, Nian Bing couldn't help but think of the last time when he had to hide here to hide from the snow. A set of snow-white clothes were neatly folded at the head of the bed. Nian Bing unfolded it and couldn't help but jump in fright. How could this be the clothes of a chef? It was clearly a luxurious robe. The white robe was embroidered with a dragon pattern with silver thread. There wasn't much embroidery, but it served as the finishing touch, making the entire set of clothes look luxurious yet elegant. The belt around the waist was very simple. It was also white, with a slightly wide silver thread on both sides. In the middle of the belt there was a piece of milky white jade. Although it wasn't white jade, it was warm to the touch and showed its extraordinariness. A chef wearing such clothes? This was clearly something that only the children of nobility would wear. Although this was what he thought, he still took off his magic robe and put on the silver-white robe.